Okay, Smoke and Snow, episode 33. When last we left our heroes, they were exploring the moss dwarf village of Swallow. During their travels around the Dolmenwood, they've discovered that this strange offshoot of the mages known as the Senna, this offshoot known as the Drune, were apparently responsible for bringing the Dolmenwood into this strange sort of pocket dimension that it currently inhabits, where winter and the cold seasons in general appears to have little to no purchase. And in fact, our very own Malcolm Harp was contacted by a frost-themed elf maiden who explained that she wanted to try and see the balance restored because the hubris of the Drune had effectively thrown off the natural cycle, because if there is a summer, there must be an autumn, there must be a spring, and there must be a winter, but that is no longer the case in the Dolmenwood. Our heroes are currently searching for a mythical blade known as the Green Steel or the Green Blade, which they have discovered, or believe, that the Drune used as a sort of conduit when they conducted their magical ritual to pull the Dolmenwood into its pocket dimension. There has been much debate amongst the heroes about if they remove this pivotal aspect of the enchantment, what will happen? Will the Dolmenwood crash back into Valkonnen, destroying what is in the place it once occupied? Will things shift to accommodate it? How will it affect the weather and the people in both places? That sort of thing. But whilst they're still musing that, obviously first of all they have to track down the Green Steel. And they believe that one of the ways in which they can do this is to locate the Drune, this mysterious sect of forest sages and sorcerers. From various people, they've discovered that apparently the Drune are the guardians of the many and various dolmen stones that give the Dolmenwood its name. And they discovered from their escort, I suppose, Samuel Tippins, a trader who does a regular trade between Swallow Village and Castle Brackenwall, that he knew of the location of some of these stones, but he gave them a wide berth because he doesn't want any truck with these Drunes. The local people being so scared of them that they barely dare speak their names, using various euphemisms for them instead. So we jump in with our heroes, having asked Samuel to take them to where one of these monoliths is located. You travel for 2 days through the Dolmenwood, going a little bit off the beaten track, heading to the west of Swallow. Obviously that'll take a couple of rations for each of you. As you travel, it's fairly slow going because it's off the beaten path, as I've said, but eventually you reach an area where, having passed from the sort of fungal area of Swallow into slightly denser woodland, you eventually reach an area about midway through the second day where the tree coverage starts to noticeably thin a little bit. And as you sort of start getting forward, you spot what appears to be the edge of a crystal clear lake. And just through the trees, at the centre of the lake on a tiny little island, you can see a large, maybe 15-foot high obelisk of what appears to be a jagged, solid looking black basalt like rock with thin traceries of silver running through it. The cart is pulled to a stop. You notice that the horses have become noticeably more skittish as you've got nearer to this obelisk. Samuel Tippins pulls the cart to a stop and he says, "Right, this is as far as I go, I'm afraid. I daren't risk angering the watchers of the woods by getting any closer. If you're still planning to go through with whatever you've got in mind, well, I wish you all luck, gentlemen, lady."
Thank you very much for your service. seems fair. I suggest you make your way before we investigate any further and you find yourself caught up in something you don't want to be in.
I'm going to... He basically, as you're sort of getting off the car, getting all your gear off, etc., he wheels the car around in a wide circle to point back in the direction it came from. And he says, yes, I'm going to head back to Orb Swallow, finish my business there, and perhaps if you're lucky, we'll meet again either there or in Castle Brackenwold. I wish you all the best. And that snaps the reins, and his horses slowly start picking their way through the trees. The cart starts trundling off. As he goes, you see him sort of give a last wave of his hand of farewell, and then the cart sort of trundles between the trees and disappears.
How far from the rock are we?
You're just at the very edge of this pretty large sort of a lake, I suppose you could. It's not really a lake, it's more of a pool, but this island's in the middle of it, so you'd have to wade across this pool to get it. You're probably you may be 10 feet from the edge of the pool, and then there's 15 feet of water, and there's this little island.
How big is the circumference of the lake?
The circumference of the lake, it's probably 50, 60 feet.
Okay, so I would like to kind of walk around the entire circumference, checking for tracks or marks or anything like that.
Okay, no problems. Make your tracking roll.
That is a very strong success.
Okay, lovely. So, as you're moving around, you do see a few tracks, so very scattered, and they're quite old. They appear to be made by humans, you would assume, and they appear to be barefoot when they're walking around. You can obviously tell from the shape of the prints. They're a good couple of weeks old, but with it being sort of fairly sheltered and sort of covered over here, and obviously there not being any winter or snow like you're used to, it's a lot easier to pick up the tracks here, particularly because the presence of the pool at the edge of it makes the ground a little bit more spongy and a little bit muddier.
Okay, and are they coming and going?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're 2-3 weeks old, we reckon?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And how deep does the pool look?
Okay, look at it. Like I say, it's crystal clear, so you can see the bottom of it. That's not a problem. Looking at it, you would estimate, and obviously there's a little bit of distortion because of the water and refraction, but you would estimate maybe 60, 70 feet. Sort of at its deepest point, obviously it sort of slopes downwards from the bank.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, so that would mean we'd have to swim. We couldn't wade all the way.
You would have to swim, yeah.
Okay.
And what direction is Malcolm looking at these tracks from where we currently are, looking at the map?
They're sort of scattered around the pool. He's pretty much walked around the pool.
So they're all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm happy to just take off my armour and swim out to have a look at this thing.
I mean,
but if
you think, so looking at it, Brock, that as long as you weren't sort of weighed down by armour, as you say, it'd be pretty easy to swim over. I mean, there's no currents really or anything that you've got to worry about.
And you can't sort of see anything particularly in there, fish or anything, potential dangers.
I'd say there's probably a few small sort of little silvery fish swimming about, but nothing that immediately sets off alarm bells.
Nothing like what we've encountered in the past. I'm happy to do that, but it's what do you think's going to happen when we do that? Are they going to come out, and do you guys want to go into hiding? But there's a good chance they already know we're here if we're this close. If they appear when people get
It
close
looks
to.
like they've been here for a few weeks though, so
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that is like old wives' tales. I'm happy for us to hide if you want to swim out and see if
Yeah.
there's any sign of them or anything there that might attract them, and
Yeah.
we can, we'll just hide here and wait for someone to come, and you can examine it.
Yeah. We'll test their rumours. So I'm going to take off my arm and give it to Lan, just
Okay.
to sort of keep hold of while they sort of hide themselves as best as possible in the undergrowth.
Yeah, no problem at all. So you give your armour to Lan. You walk up to the edge of the pool. Let's say crystal clear water.
I'll test it with my hand.
You test it, and it feels like very temperate. It's a little bit chillier than the surroundings, but like not so much that it'd cause you massive discomfort. You think perhaps if you were in the water for like a good long time, it might become an issue, but you know, I mean, given that the weather's fairly clement around here, as long as you're not planning on like treading water for like a week or something, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll ignore that. I just don't see that even sort of an issue for myself with my ice walker sort of backgrounds.
However, as you're testing the water, you put your finger in it or whatever, you're sort of like looking into the water, and as you look out across the water towards this small island with this obelisk rising up from it, you see what appears to be like a pale shape drifting under the water, roughly human size. And as you sort of like focus on it and you look a bit closer, obviously taking all precautions, you see what appears to be the sort of pale form of a beautiful young woman who appears to be sort of like half wrapped in various sort of bits of cloth, sort of tatters of cloth, and she appears to just be like drifting under the water with a face with a sort of like peaceful, almost like serene expression, as though she's being sort of like gently buffeted along by unseen gentle currents.
And this creature or this person coming towards me as I've sort of approached the edge, or just generally just drifting?
It slowly seems to be drifting towards you, but like I say, it's very sort of slow and meandering. It's not like you've touched the water and it's like straight towards you.
Well, I'll sort of hold my ground, but if it continues to get closer, I'll just take a couple of steps back to sort of almost allow it to come out if it's going to come out.
Yep, you take a couple of steps back, and indeed, as it sort of reaches near the edge, you can now see it more clearly. And as I've said, it's a young woman actually wearing sort of like a simple cloth garment that's been sort of gently wafted around by the waters. As she reaches near the edge, she slowly sort of rises up towards the surface, and she emerges out of the water, her long hair falling around, sort of like the water cascading off her, and she holds out slender, pale arms in your direction. Brock, can you please make me a save versus spells?
Ooh. Spells. No, I can't.
Okay, so the rest of you, and obviously during this you can obviously take control of Lan as well, Brock, of course.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of you see this pale woman emerge. She holds out these slender arms almost gently towards Brock, and a sort of odd, almost like slack expression comes over his face. He takes a couple of halting steps forward, then his eyes roll back into his head and he seems to like fall forwards almost in a faint. The woman, seemingly effortlessly, which is pretty impressive given how massive Brock is, just like catches him gently in her arms, as she's like cradling him, holding his head with one of her arms, almost tenderly, like you might hold a child or a loved one. And she slowly starts to sink back into the water, taking Brock with her.
I mean, Lan will obviously instantly react to that.
Yep.
So she'll just run forward, and she'll just be shouting, "Let him go, you witch!" And she'll be just like trying to grab him back before.
Okay, make me a strength check for Lan.
Okay. That's going to be a good day.
Okay, so you watch the rest of you as Lan grabs hold of Brock's foot, basically, but he's already covered in the spray of water that's cascaded out as this spectral maiden of the pool took hold of him, and her hands sort of slip off his muscular calves as this woman like slowly continues to sink into the water, taking Brock with her.
Can I run out and strike the woman with my sword? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
You most certainly can. Make an attack roll.
Okay, so that's 23 for 9 points of damage.
Okay, that is definitely a hit. So, what weapon are you using? I presume
it's the sword of respect. Yeah.
Okay, no problems. Yeah, you lash out at this woman. For a few moments, it looks as though your sword is going to pass straight through her, and you feel no resistance. But then the sword of respect does seem to actually like cleave into her. You see the previously sort of beatific and peaceful face of this woman twists in pain. And if you've ever seen the bit with the Ark of the Covenant in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where the beautiful looking figure comes out and then turns into this horrendous skeleton, a rather similar transformation takes place, where it's almost as though the flesh on this spectral maiden is like blasted instantly off her bones by the force of her own hatred, and she turns her face towards you, howling in this deafening, ear-piercing shriek that seems to echo through the clearing, shaking the very trees. You see the branches of trees swaying crazily as though buffeted by a strong wind, and leaves are dislodged from the branches, falling down all around you. She still maintains hold of Brock. She's not like grabbing him, it's just like cradling him. Although you can see her hands, once perfectly formed, gentle and delicate, are now sort of skeletal, fleshless claws that are still oddly, sort of gently holding the head of Brock.
Okay.
Weimar, what are you up to?
So I've got a fair bit of armor on, which is why I wasn't, it takes a bit.
To be fair, if you've just bought like plate mail, you're not like, oh, swim's what I fancy.
Yeah, I can't really do the swan dive. What he is going to be doing is getting the old trusty rope and grappling hook. I'm gonna try and grappling hook Brock's body and just like try and like just draw his body out of the grasp of this specter.
Okay. Yep, getting the grappling hook on him isn't a problem, since this like phantasmal maiden is distracted by Malcolm welling in with the sword of respect. So you don't have to make a roll for that. I'm going to ask you to make a strength roll to see if you can pull him out.
Let's see. Here we go. Come on, praise Gale. There we go.
Okay, so you lean backwards, putting all your weight into it, and it ends up with you like falling over because of the peg leg, and the extra weight of the armor, and you've pretty much leant. And for a minute, you're like, oh, the resistance. Then the resistance is gone as you pull him free. Brock is pulled towards you. He sort of almost like skims through the water, like spraying water, or you winch him onto the bank of the pond, and basically like you pretty much land in a pile with him as you sort of fall over when the resistance is gone. The upshot of that though, Brock, is as you like clatter into Weimar, and you're going to be a bit bruised and a bit battered, but it's not enough to really count as any damage. The sort of shock of impacting with a man like wearing full plate at fairly high speed like wakes you up from this strange sort of half slumber you'd been in since you sort of like looked into the eyes of this woman. And you had this, as you were asleep, you had this strange dream about her, this young unfortunate maiden sort of standing on the bank of the pool, and the bank of the pool sort of crumbling away, her desperately trying to find purchase as she fell towards the water, falling in and sort of struggling to get back to the bank, but perhaps not being able to swim, you don't know. But the more she struggled, the more she seemed to sink, until your dream, you saw her like disappear below the waves, her hand sort of being the last bit to disappear, and then there's this loud crashing of plate mail and the sort of the feeling of grass sort of scraping against your exposed skin as you open your eyes to find yourself pretty much lying in a heap with Weimar with this grappling hook like tied around your leg with a bit of rope.
And do I remember the last sort of 30 seconds or whatever it is? Yeah. So I remember seeing her and then sort of losing control of myself. And
That's correct, yeah.
and in that very quick flashback, did I see anything in the water sort of attracting her in? Or no? Okay. Well, I'm just gonna, spend my next turn just sort of unraveling myself and getting back up and rushing over to help Malcolm and Lan at the water edge.
Okay. As you're doing that, the now cadaverous and skull-like maiden continues to rise up out of the water until she's actually floating like a foot above the water. Her now battered and ragged sort of clothing that appears to have like rotted away, much like her flesh, sort of hangs limply with now thin rivulets of now putrid water dribbling from her and back into the pool. She throws back her skull-like visage and lets out again this tremendous wail of absolutely terrible anger, but also there's a strange sort of haunting beauty about it almost. And I'm going to ask, can you all please make me a save versus spells?
Oh boy.
I've seen through this witchcraft now.
So
I said Brock's having none of it.
I think it's probably a given, but John, is this magic?
Yes.
Because I have a modifier on for that. Oh, it's built in. Nice. Okay, so I just click this and it should be fine. Yeah. It fucked me right up.
Okay, so can you please roll me a d12? Why not?
Yeah. 10.
Okay, now I think you'll probably quite like this out of character, but we'll do a little bit of a discussion about this because the wail of this phantom of the pool. If you fail this save, it causes you to be stricken mad for D12 days. Now, obviously, there's no sort of like stat effects, so to speak. So I'm going to throw the floor open to you guys. We'll have a bit of discussion. Obviously, we know that Weimar's effectively been stricken mad, whatever we decide that means, for 10 days, and I'll leave you to track that the 10 days. Obviously, we don't want it to be something that's going to make your character unplayable or less enjoyable for you to play, but it should be something that, you know, you can have a bit of fun role-playing and that will have like an impact, either positive or negative, on situations. So I'm throwing it open, obviously primarily to yourself, Weimar, but obviously everyone else feel free to chip in, because it's the whale sort of exaggerates like your own characteristics to like bring out your inner madness. It doesn't like impose a madness on you. So in Weimar's case, like, what sort of madness might he fall prey to for the next 10 days?
Yeah. If anyone has any ideas, we can talk about this as a.
I mean, I was wondering if we'd even noticed, to be honest, but
certainly the talking to himself, the way he talks to the sun.
oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Kind of came to me in terms of your inner,
Yeah.
Talking
that
to
inner
it.
monologue, kind
'cause
of
it's-
manifesting itself.
There's one that comes to me very quickly, and that's because of his sort of background in fighting against the extremely religiously motivated people back on the homeland. And that can go into some very, very dark places. So that's where my mind went, surprise to everyone, I'm sure. But I do like the idea that he's going to sort of like externalize thoughts somehow and like vocalize, talk to himself.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
talk to
It's-
other stuff, like, you know, horses and carriages and trees and
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of talking to the sword, starts
Yeah.
talking to everything else, expecting
everything.
everything to talk back.
Yeah. So, sort of like his like understanding of reality is like includes an additional rule, which is that everything. It's almost like he lives in like an animist reality where
Yes.
he's like, oh, I can talk to rocks because rocks are things that can talk back, right?
Well, like you say, maybe it's like he's got that used to like the sword sort of being in mental contact with him.
Yeah.
Maybe for the period of this madness, maybe he genuinely does think like the rocks and the horse and the cart and whatever are talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, you guys, you only hear Brock's side of the conversation.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
Okay, and like I say, it's for 10 days. I'll leave you to track that and role play as you see fit. After letting out this unearthly beautiful and also terrible whale, the phantom starts floating out towards you, sort of like drifting through the air slowly. Again, its skeletal claws held out in front of it as they're like reaching out for you. It's about 5 foot away from the bank, still sort of like drifting slowly closer to you. Obviously, it's nearest to Malcolm because you've been like laying into it.
Yeah.
But it's done its action for next one. I know we're not strictly in combat rounds, but I'm going to keep a loose sort of order. So it's gone. So what do you guys want to do?
I'd like to hit it again.
Go for it.
Or not, as the case may be.
Yep. So you swing your sword at it. However, almost as though buffeted by a gentle breeze, it just sort of drifts back a little out of range of your sword. The withered and decaying fronds of the cloth about it sort of rippling almost as though the figure was still underwater, even though it's plainly not. Okay.
Yeah, I'm also going to rush back in now. I've seen the truth of this creature. We need to put it to rest. So I'm going to run back in to try and put this thing down.
Okay. Make your attack roll.
21, but it's only 3 damage.
Every little helps, as they say. So yeah, obviously with your barbarian's ability to affect non-natural creatures, you lash out at it, and you see a thin trail of sort of this almost like spectral ectoplasm is sort of cut off this creature as you strike out at it, presumably with your spear.
That was my two-handed sword, but
Okay, with your two-handed sword then.
it's just I rolled really bad on the damage. And Lan, not knowing that she won't potentially be able to hit it, she will obviously launch an attack at it as well.
Okay.
Miss terribly, I would imagine.
Yeah. Okay, so Weimar.
So how deep is the water where they're scuffling right now?
Like, it's right on the edge, so it's like probably less than 5 foot deep. Like
Still
literally,
not a great idea for me.
if
to
you
go
waded
there.
in, you'd probably be up to your waist.
Yeah. Well, it's more upkeep, I guess, for later. But yeah, I'll let go of the rope because we're apparently Brock's okay, which is what was the goal of that, and he's going back in. So I'll draw the sun sword, and I will charge in with my shield, sword, and I will. Well, it's like my charge, quote unquote, sort of stops when I hit the water because then I need to start waiting to get close. So it's a bit more of a Wait, let me step carefully now because it's slippery and I'm wearing a lot of armor. And I'm gonna take a swing with the sun sword. Now, is this undead?
It is indeed.
Ouch.
Damage could have been better, but yep.
Okay, so the sun sword flares out, casting this bright radiance into the clearing, the light of the sword glittering off the pole as you slice it through the edge of this creature, which is now, given the battering it's taking, starting to sort of flicker and become a little more gauzy and sort of semi-transparent. As you're sort of preparing to deal with this creature and it's drifting, it starts drifting closer to you. Weimar obviously being the last person to strike it, its talons reaching out for you. When from beyond it, at the centre of the pool, you hear a sort of grinding sound like stones or rocks grinding over each other. And you can't really see this, Weimar, because this thing's in the way. But Malcolm and Brock, you watch as 3 seams, sort of, or cracks, appear on this large dark stone monolith in the centre, until like there's a crude sort of resemblance to a face in the monolith, and a grinding stone-like voice emanates from the monolith that just says, "Peace now." At which point the maiden spirit lets out a wail, and it's almost as though it's bodily pulled back into the water. There's a splash as it disappears under the water, and it sort of turns into like almost like a hazy, like mist-like substance, and then disperses into the body of the water until after a few moments you can't see any sign of its presence.
The stone. I'll point my sword at it.
Yeah, the talking stone is already started.
It's real.
So is the face still there? Is
Yeah.
it still present?
I say it's very crude. It's just like a crack for a mouth and like a couple of like indentations for eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look to the other two and say, you know, this is more witchcraft. This is the Drune, surely.
At which point, like as you say, this is the Drune, surely. Again, the sort of rough stone voice echoes out and says, "You should have a care when using such names. Names have power in the Dolmenwood."
Might we approach?
Of course.
So I will take my armor off, tie my sword to my back, and I guess swim out to the island.
I'm going to put my hand on his shoulder before he does that. And I say, maybe tie this rope round your waist.
Okay.
And since the grappling hook's already out, I'll ask Wymer if I can tie it around him
Yep.
and
Okay.
and keep hold of it and feed it out if he's going across.
Yep, you secure the rope around your waist, wise precaution, strap your sword to your back, you swim out to this small island in the centre. Now you're nearer, you can see that on this sort of little grassy island, the stone actually rests on what appears to be a very sort of small, like round dais of like crumbling sandstone, but it's quite difficult to see until you're close up because the grass has sort of overgrown it. And like I said, this large 15-foot monolith of like black stone with these fine, sort of like thread-fine silver traceries irregularly running through it. And now, of course, this cracked stone face on the front of it.
So when I get there, I kind of want to say, like, greetings. Thank you. We seem to have upset the fair lady. Might we know who you are?
The voice says, that unfortunate creature drowned by accident in this pool many years ago, and her spirit lingered. But she is a useful deterrent for those who would plunder the resources of the Dolmenwood. I am Drune Hegral.
Drune Hagal.
Yep.
Okay. And what kind of resources do people plunder from the Dolmenwood?
In all honesty, there is very little for them to take from this island. I have long ago abandoned the weaknesses of the flesh in pursuit of my greater duties. But there are those who would attempt to take the stone and would interfere in what is rightfully ours. It serves our purpose to leave our sentinel in this pool, to deter idle wanderers, and if it helps preserve our reputation, then that is a no small side benefit.
And are you of the people who created this land and moved it from its original place?
I am.
Ah.
Of course, you understand I'm not one of the self-same people that performed that most ancient of rite. They all died thousands of years ago. But I am of the same brotherhood as they.
Ah, okay. And what is your purpose now?
I am one of the Drune. We guard these sacred places, these stones, these monoliths, these dolmens that give the forest its name.
Okay.
We guard the dolmens and the lines of force that run between them.
Okay. And do you communicate with those who have not completed your sacrifice?
Yes, in fact, there are 3 of my brothers on their way here at this very moment.
Ah. At which point I'll make the get ready sign to the bank.
Norm, do not misunderstand me. Normally, I would have allowed the phantom to, if not kill you, but deter you from further entering the clearing. As soon as it rose, I summoned my brother Drune in case our deterrent should not prove sufficient. But given the nature of your questioning, your manner of speech, and your dress, I can tell you are not of the Dolmenwood.
No.
And I sense one of you carries an item of rare power on you. And items of rare power greatly interest my brotherhood.
Right. We could see why. We have come in search of an item of great power.
Indeed.
Aye, an emerald sword or a green blade.
You speak of the green steel.
Yes, the green steel. Know you of this object?
Indeed, it is one of my brotherhood's greatest achievement, the focal point through which we channeled our great working to bring this wood to its current place, to preserve it and place it beyond the reach of the Cold Prince.
No. And why is it that you wish to be beyond the realm of the Cold Prince?
Originally, as I say, I was not there myself, but originally it was simply a survival method. We saw what our brothers, as they once were intending to do, and we cautioned them against it. We told them that there would be a reckoning, and that tampering with the natural force of things would bring a swift reckoning to the land that we once called home, but they would not listen, and so we made our preparations in secret to take a place and move it beyond the reach of the disaster which we foresaw. We were, of course, limited by how much we could save, but with the aid of the green steel, we were able to encompass this entire area of woodland and move it beyond reach of the ice flows movement and the catastrophe we foresaw coming. We would have saved more were we able, but it was beyond our power. This woodland, although huge, was all that we could manage. Had we the ability to have taken the rest with us, we would have done so. But back then, it was easier. The human nobles of the time, even the Church of the One True God, understood the need, and they worked with us. But the memories of most men are short, and they have forgotten our old alliance. The nobles spend their time bickering with each other and arguing over pointless things, lines on a map, whilst chaos gnaws at the edges of the Dolmenwood. And the church keeps its secrets and is happy to maintain its hold on the poor and the general populace of people. The old alliance is forgotten.
Do you think it is perhaps time to return Dolmenwood to its original location?
Would that it was as simple as that. The magics that were woven to bring the Dolmenwood here were done in an age when the Drune were at the height of their power, and we sacrificed much of that power to bring this place here, and we are not, those of us who now remain are diminished from what we once were. I'm not even sure we have the power to safely unbind such a working now, even if we were to wish it.
And what would happen if it was unbound unsuccessfully?
I do not know, but I predict the result would be catastrophic for both the Dolmenwood and the lands of old. If we, for instance, if we were to simply remove the focal point without taking due care, the woodland may simply crash back into Dolmenwood. The lines of force that have long been channeled into specific patterns to maintain the enchantment would be set free to snap back like a cord to their previous positions. Such uncontrolled and untamed arcane force would be extremely hazardous, even for those of my brotherhood who know the likes of the forces that are involved. For those who do not, the result will be even more catastrophic.
Do you know where one might go to see the green steel?
Alas, I cannot tell you that. My order has strict rules about the information we can share with those not of our order.
Right.
Especially in this time where the Chaos Beast Atanui gnaws at the northern edges of the Dolmenwood, and much of our energy is expended preventing the incursions of his creatures into the woodlands. It is one of the few things in which we still agree with the human nobles.
Okay. And what creatures does he send to attack?
Whilst Atanui is not a god as such, although it would like you to think otherwise, it is a formless, powerful creature of chaos, and those creatures that harbour chaos taint deep in their souls, it calls out to them, it draws it to their banner. You need only look at the disease-ridden corruptions of the Crookhorns that its mere presence creates. Although I have never been fond of the Beastmen, the Longhorns at least have some pretense of civility, whereas the Crookhorns are little more than diseased ravagers seeking to tear down all around them as their own bodies slowly fail to their eternal corruption.
Mm. And your brothers who come, do you think that they will let us pass in peace? Or do they seek to take the object of interest by violence or through violence?
If I command them to let you depart in peace, they will let you depart in peace. I am the senior member of our brotherhood here. Although we are much reduced, the position of our Drune is still respected amongst our brotherhood. The sacrifice of those of us who give our lives to protect these sacred spaces throughout the woods is respected by those who have more freedom in their wanderings.
And tell me, will you ask them to let us pass in peace?
Of that, I have not yet decided, although I am greatly enjoying our conversation.
Interesting. And tell me, the Aldruin, are they the upper hierarchy of your brotherhood, or is there a hierarchy above that?
There is the head of our order that we follow, and there is not a strict hierarchy as you might mean it, but we all have our roles within the brotherhood, and due to the sacrifices that, although not all our Drune have abandoned the physical as I have, we have all sacrificed to protect our particular charges. and we are all bound to remain with the areas that we protect. And because of that sacrifice, we are respected by our younger brothers.
Mm. And do you think the head of your brotherhood, would treat with us?
It is extremely unlikely the head of the Drune is involved with far weightier matters than, forgive me for saying so, strangers wandering through the Dolmenwood. If you perhaps proved your worth to the Brotherhood, that might change, but it is a rare person indeed, even amongst the Drune, who receives an audience with the head of our order.
Mm-hmm. And how might one prove themselves to the Brotherhood?
It is our belief that most people throughout the lands are ill-equipped to understand and to use items of power. As I've said, the memories of men are short. They use such items for petty means. We collect such items. We guard them and preserve them for when they are needed, and ensure that they are not used by those who are unready for them. If you were to perhaps recover some items of power and gift them to the Drune, that might see your reputation amongst our brotherhood rise.
Did you have a particular object in mind?
Well, there are some rumours that to the west of here there is a ruined abbey of the Church of the One True God, where we believe, the Drune, that it is the spot where Atanoi first arrived in the Dolmenwood, shortly after it came to this place. One of their holy men battled the creature there using a great and powerful weapon. Although not able to defeat Atanoi, he was able to wound it, which drove the Chaos Godling to the north, the northern fringes of the Dolmenwood, and caused it to, even now it still is healing from those wounds, causing it to move slowly and at far less power than it might otherwise wield. That is why it draws creatures to itself, because it does not yet have the power to stride forth in person. Apparently this weapon, as the holy man lay dying from his wounds, one of his seconds took the weapon into the woods, and it has since been lost. It is said by many in the woods that there are clues to the location of this weapon in the abbey itself. My own brothers have investigated the ruins, haunted though they are, but we have been unable to find anything. But we are unfamiliar with the ways of the church. Perhaps, as outsiders, you might have better luck. I do not know if you are followers of the one true God.
We are not. We follow all their gods.
It would not matter if you were, since the one true God is no longer present. But of course, the church either knows and chooses to turn a deaf ear, or they do not. So they are either fools, or they are willingly deceiving their congregation. Either way, it does not matter to the Drune.
Indeed. Do you know what kind of weapon he wielded?
No, only that it was supposed to be a weapon of great power.
Okay. And how might we gift such a weapon to the Drune should we happen across it?
You could bring it here to me. As I've said, I have the ability to summon my brothers. And as he says that, there is like a rustling at the edge of the clearing, and 3 figures wearing like brown robes with like hoods pulled down over their faces step out of the trees. And they remain with their heads bowed and their hands sort of like that clasped in front of them. They don't appear to be carrying any weapons that you can see.
Okay. And would such a weapon be sufficient to get us an audience with the head of your brotherhood?
Not on its own, but it would be a good start.
Okay. And what else do you think would be required?
Either more items of power or information that could be useful to us, or if you could defeat or remove a problem to the Drune, although our main focus at the minute is Atanwi, as I've said. And I mean no disrespect, but I do not believe you have the power to face such a creature, even in its injured state.
Okay. Okay. And do you know of other objects of interest? Or is this the only one that you know of?
That is the only one that springs to my mind. But there are many enchanted items through the Dolmenwood, many that the Drune have gathered to them, many that are in other hands or that have been lost to the march of time.
Okay. So, if we agree to visit this abbey and perhaps look for this object, would that be sufficient for you to let us pass in peace, or do we think violence is needed?
If you give me your word that you will attempt to seek the item, I do not believe anything is to be gained by spilling your blood in this clearing.
Or the blood of your brothers, which is most likely what would be spread.
Perhaps.
We will travel to the abbey and we will see what we can find. And I will make no promises beyond that.
Very well. At which point, seemingly not speaking to you, it says, brothers, give them a light to light them to the road south of here. Once you reach the road, continue west for a day and you will reach a human town. 2 days beyond that, you will find the abbey ruins if you continue to follow the road.
Okay. Well, Aldruin Hagal, it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and we will be about our business.
Indeed. And as they say that, one of the cloaked figures who's standing near to you, Brock, he holds up his hand like that, and what appears to be a small ball of green fire coalesces on his hand. He sort of goes like that as though he's throwing it up into the air. The lights, this sort of small globe of green fire, seems to just like hover in the air. And then the 3 brown-robed Drune start slowly retreating back into the trees without saying a word. The ball of fire just like hovers there.
Well, I'll keep a close eye on that because obviously he's not trusting what that is.
The voice from the stone says, "This light will show you to the road."
Did I hear this conversation from where we were?
Yeah.
Okay, because Brock sort of picked up on the fact that this stone said that this woman unfortunately drowned in this water, and from that flashback, is that what it looked like, or did it look like the water was dragging her in and sort of?
Yeah, it looked like she drowned fairly normally. You know, like she obviously couldn't swim. She she got in a bit deeper than she intended. Sort of slipped a bit, panicked, started thrashing around, and sank.
Okay, it sounded at first like it was, some sort of magic or something was dragging her in rather than. So it did look more natural and a bit more of an accident. Okay, all right. I was just picking up on if he's lying to us, basically. Okay. Well, I'll just guard while Malcolm's making his way back to us.
Cool. So I'll swim back over, get my gear. Does the light, like, as we walk towards the light, I'm guessing it moves and then we follow it? Is that?
Yeah. As you walk towards it, it sort of moves southwards and then stops. So it's always about like 3 or 4 feet ahead of you. Then as you stop, it stops. You move forward, it moves forward, maintaining the same distance.
Okay. So I guess we will follow it to the road, and then I guess we will head west towards Prigwort, and maybe stop in town, have a rest, have some food, and perhaps a conversation about where we go from here.
Okay.
How are we doing on the rations front? Whilst we've been here, are we?
I'm assuming we brought loads and we have plenty. I don't know, we didn't bring our ponies through, but I'm presuming we brought enough for a few days. And we picked up some in the market as well, so.
Yeah.
Sorry, Weimar, so we've gone to Prigwort, and we are, I guess, about to settle down and have some food and a conversation about what's next. So Malcolm is inclined to go to the Abbey for the want of anything else to be doing, but super sketchy about handing over strong magical objects to the Brotherhood. But I don't know how else we're going to find out where the sword is unless we potentially keep heading west and hope the Sun Sword can sense the Green Blade.
Yeah, I suppose sort of going about will eventually lead us to something.
Yeah.
The Abbey might have something to...
Yeah, I mean, as a Sun Sword, is it got any more idea since we've been at this monolith thing and where the powers may be greater and we've been talking to this thing? Is it worth asking the Sun Sword if there's any more idea of where this other sword might be? Is it helping to locate it?
Oh, I'll touch the pommel and I'll ask. So, what did you sense anything of significance at the monolith?
Well, from what it seems to me, says the sword, it seems as though what they're saying about the green steel being used as the focal point for this enchantment would seem to make sense. I mean, it seems to me as though part of the the power of the green steel is being dispersed along these lines of force, and that is why I'm having trouble zeroing in on it, you might say, because wherever these lines of force are, I'm sensing the power of the green steel that is within it. It seems to me that the further west we go, the stronger my sense of its presence is getting. But it's still very difficult to tell exactly. Like I say, its power has been dispersed throughout this place and is almost acting like a web holding this place where it is currently.
So I presume this is the sword talking, which means the Weimar's talking.
Yeah.
So I'll, as the sword finishes, I'll say, I would be inclined to concur with the good sword here. It is quite apparent to me that whatever they have done to put these way lines and imbue them with great power, the land itself here is alive in ways that I don't think Valkonnen was. And I don't just mean the snow. There's a lot to be learned here from the land. I feel the way lines very interesting. Towards the west, then, I would think, taking note of any, I suppose, remarkable natural features, would you say?
Okay. Or more stones.
Or more stone, like that.
More stones.
Okay, so following this ball of green light that one of the Drunes summoned, you follow it south till you get to this well-worn road that you've travelled previously, and as it reaches the road, the light appears to fade and dwindle until it's first of all just like a small mote of green, and then it vanishes. And sort of about after travelling for like a day to the west, you spot what appears to be a town, like a stone wall around it, and like a sort of, from the direction you're approaching down the Hallside Road, you can see this sort of ornamental gate with a little portcullis and like turrets. It's about twice the height of a normal man. There's a couple of like guards standing on the gate. You can hear like the sounds of carts and like murmured conversation coming from beyond it from the townsfolk.
Okay. So we've been traveling for a few days, so I suggest let's find somewhere nice to stay, have a nice meal, and then we can head west tomorrow and try and find this abbey. Maybe we'll see if we can find out any information about the abbey in the town and the market.
Yep.
Yes.
So I'll approach the guard and just say, just passing through, can you recommend an inn that would be suitable for the five of us and our pets?
He says, "Oh, wow, you're in luck there, stranger." He says, "This is the town of Prigwort, home of the Council of Local Brewmasters."
Ah.
He says, "Oh, you find many a tavern and a fine brew in Prigwort, sir."
Ah. And can you recommend somewhere to stay?
He says, "Oh, well, my personal favourite is, although it's a bit of an acquired taste, my personal favourite is called the Oath in the Oast. It's taverns, you can get a nice bath there as well." He said, the landlord's a bit of the character, but it's a nice enough place. Keeps a clean shop."
Okay, and can you maybe give us directions?
"Oh, yeah, of course, not a problem." He says, "Right, if you head down the main thoroughfare through the town here, take the street to your right, keep following that until you get to the market square, the town hall's near there. Once you've reached that, sort of carry on past that, going in the same direction, and you'll pass 3 buildings, and the third one you get to, that's the Oath in the Oast.
Okay. Cool. And while I have you, is there anyone in town who might be able to give us some information about an abbey to the west of here? Anyone who might have visited it, or we've heard it's haunted?
He says, "Oh, well, Abbey." He says, "Well, I expect you. I'm not really. Obviously, I'm of the faith, but I'm not really into it heavily like some people are. If you know what I mean. I don't mean no disrespect, sir." He says, "But if you're looking for that," he says, "well, the best place to it will probably be the Church of St. Wayland. You can't miss it. As you go through the gate here, look immediately to your left. It's the biggest building. You literally cannot. In fact, you see those like towers coming up over there. That's it."
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you ask there, they'll probably have to tell you something about it. The old Reverend Mother Smunk might be able to tell you a bit about that.
Okay.
She's a bit of an odd sort, but pretty much everyone visits the church, even the older brewmasters. Hoping to get a bit of a blessing and get their prayers in and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, she's been here since I was a lad. If anyone knows anything about some old like ruins, it'll be her.
Okay. And then tell me, is there anything of interest in the town that we might want to check out as strangers in your land?
He says, "Well, that depends what you're looking for, sir."
Good question. I am interested in very fine equipment for the likely sort. And perhaps some likely lads, should there be likely lads who might be in the market for work.
He says, "Well, I don't know about likely lads, sir, but if you're looking for something in the way of like garments and that, there's Brandy Biles, the tailor. He's pretty well known throughout these parts. Makes stuff that goes to Lord Brackenwalder, as he likes to tell everybody."
Ah. Yeah.
He says, "Well, if you're after something a little bit more in a decorative vein, there's the Sea of Stars, which is a jeweller's. That's got a very good reputation. If you're looking for something a bit fancier."
Sea of Stars. Yeah.
He says, "Yeah, well, obviously we've got a herbalist. There's old Bag Manor, but the Droogs don't really get out very much. They're an odd sort. If you're looking for a bit of local colour, though, sir, you might want to check out the Bagwall just to the north of here."
Okay. That sounds interesting. What is that?
He says, "Well," he says, the way it's a bit of a local superstition, sir, to be honest with you. Nothing's really meant to be, just a local bit of fun. But the way if you ask 5 different people in Prigwort what the story is, you'll get 6 different versions. But the way I hear it is like centuries ago there was this noble, a bit sort of like strange in the way nobles are, and in the tales he's called Lord Bag in Hand. Well, I dare say that's not what his real name was. And he had a mind to build a manor on the outskirts of Prigwort back in the day. Now, there was one catch, and I'm sure this isn't true, but this is how the tale goes. Apparently he was mortally afraid of, some legends say it was like squirrels, Some legends say it was badgers, some say it was fairies. It varies depending on who you ask, which, according to legend, used to like frequent the region, although I've never seen anything like that. Anyway, undeterred, he arranged for this construction of a wall to be built round the side to the manor, with all these like mirrors affixed to the outer side, because for some reason he thought that'd like repel whatever these creatures were. Well, after a year of work on it, like they'd literally just got the wall done, they hadn't even started on the mansion yet. All the builders just upped and left, and they said that the Lord had just vanished like that, and no more was heard of him. Some people think he died of the plague. Some people think he was carried off by whatever creatures he was scared of. Some people think he was like the Lord never existed. He was just like a spirit in disguise, playing a prank. No one really knows. But, well, all that's left of him, to be honest, sir, is of his legacy, is this like little stretch of wall that's like built around nothing, really. I suppose you might call it a folly, sir, to be honest. But yeah, it's a little bit of local colour. You know, we occasionally the Guild of Brewmasters, they'll like hold a meeting there, you know, just for appearance's sake, or there'll be like a town meeting and they'll hold it there instead of the town hall if the weather's good. Like I say, just a bit of local colour, so a bit of local legend. Like I say, I've never seen anything strange there. It's just like a bit of wall to me, but well, it's a fun little story to tell people, isn't it? And,
yeah, no, absolutely.
As is the way with these things, like I say, you ask different people, they'll tell you different versions of it and different variations, but that's the gist of it, sir.
Ah. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome,
and
sir.
I will toss him a gold coin, and
He catches it and he's like, oh, thank you, sir. Much obliged.
I guess we should head for the church unless anyone wants to do something else.
I mean, seems a good place to start, certainly.
As you sort of start to walk off, the same guard says, oh, and by the way, sir, if you are stopping and staying in our lovely town for a bit, I'd advise you to try some of the sort of specialist like local brews. Some of our more popular ones we export to like Brackenwold and other places around the Dolmenwood, but some of the more specialist ones, you know, that are more difficult to transport, well, you can only really get them in Brigwater and in the taverns locally, and well, it's what we're known for, basically, sir, you know. Well, one of the things, anyway.
Well, we'll definitely try out a few as we go.
Well, I hope you have a good stay, you and your companions, sir.
Thank you very much.
A good day to you, good travelling.
And to you. Cool, so I think we want to head for the church, and I guess we'll knock on the door or open the door and walk in, depending on what kind of church it is.
Okay, that is not a problem at all. So you make your way through the turret gate, and indeed on your left as you enter, you see this large, almost Gothic-looking stone church. There, next to it, there is a small sort of inner wall that's sort of like built on to the main town wall. There's like a little wrought iron gate, and beyond that you can see like a sort of like remembrance garden with a little path running through it. There's lots of gravestones for townsfolk with like neatly trimmed hedgerows and sort of freshly mown grass, a few flowers dotted around. It looks very pleasant and very well kept. And in fact, you can see a couple of people wearing sort of like just, you know, standard like hard wearing like working gear, sort of moving around, you know, like trimming the grass down, like caring for the graves, like pruning the plants and stuff like that. The church itself, it's a rambling structure that's obviously, as you look at it, been sort of added on to a number of times over the years. Like each time the town's got bigger and the congregation's got bigger, presumably they've just like built an extra bit on the church, so it looks a little bit higgledy-piggledy now now that you sort of come to look at it. But you see lots of people sort of going in and out of the church. There's hymn singing. Obviously you don't recognise the particular hymns, but there's hymn singing coming out. There's people going in and out. You can see a number of, you presume, sort of like clergy, friars, nuns, etc., dressed in their various sort of robes of office, if you'd call it that, sort of moving around.
Okay. And is there one who obviously looks like they're in charge or seems to be in charge, or?
Not that you can see at the minute. Most of the people who are coming out, there's like basically like a couple of nuns sort of stood on the door, and as people are coming out, like they're just saying to the nuns, like, "Oh, it was a good service today. Thank you very much." And the nuns are like, "Oh, well, thank you very much." And, they're like taking like little contributions off them and stuff like that, and then they're sort of saying, "Oh, the one true God bless you, my child. Go with the blessings of the one true God. Enjoy the rest of your this beautiful day that we've been given," and just general sort of stuff like that. People are going about the visit. You can't see anyone who, obviously by their sort of dress, is marked out as being particularly in charge.
And what did the guard say the head priest's name was? Was it?
Okay, the guard said it was Reverend Mother Smunk. S-M-U-N-K.
So I'd like to kind of, when there's a moment of peace, approach one of the nuns and just explain that we are newly arrived in town, and we are seeking an audience with the Reverend Mother Smunk.
Okay, so you walk up to one of the nuns after she's just like to say goodbye to some people. She turns around to you and she says, "Oh, good morning to you, sir. A blessed day that the one true God has given us this day."
Yes, a fine day indeed.
And tell me, sir, have you heard the word of the one true God?
I have not. But alas, my needs are a little bit more pressing than that.
Oh, sir, surely. And she says, like in mock surprise, she's like, "Oh, sir, surely you cannot mean there is something more important than the salvation of your very soul, sir."
I do not think your one true God can salvage my soul.
At which point she, with a genuine sort of like display of affection, she sort of like very gently takes one of your hands in hers, and she said, and in a sudden earnestness coming over her voice says, "Sir, there are no sins that cannot be forgiven by the grace of the one true God. All that is necessary is the desire to be saved for the one true God. Sees the light in all of us."
Mm-hmm. It is my desire to be saved by another.
She says, "Well, if you," obviously like misunderstanding what you meant, she says, "Well, if you'd like, I can understand if I'm only a junior member of the clergy, of course. If you believe that your particular case requires someone of more seniority, of course, we will do all we can to help you."
Yes, perhaps the Reverend Mother Smunk might assist me for a moment or two.
Yes, of course. She's inside with the children. Please follow me. And she starts like leading you into the church. While this conversation's going on, what are Brock and the wheelmaster up to?
Wymore puts his disguise back on.
That's it. They call him that because he's been talking to the cartwheels all the way along here.
Yeah, spinning along with them. I suppose I'd be inside, sort of flanking Malcolm, checking the place out. Rather curious because, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've not really heard of these saints that they have here.
No.
This one or the other one.
No, the names of them don't really mean anything to you, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. So just very intrigued by like what's this about? Looking around the facilities, I guess.
Okay.
Sort of being a shadow to Malcolm.
Okay, no problem at all. And what about Brock and Lan? What are they up to?
Yeah, I mean we're in with the group. I'm actually finding it quite amusing, the talk of, these beings that are going to save them from all these issues that Brock's got no belief of. He's definitely a man of steel, and if he can't solve it, then no one else is going to help him. So he's finding it quite amusing. He's just listening in, and he knows that Malcolm's obviously got different beliefs. So he's finding the sort of conflict of belief's quite amusing. So he's taking the opportunity to lighten the mood a bit and soak it in.
Okay, so you all head in, led by this junior nun. As she leads you in, it's the fairly standard church layout, pews, central aisle, etc. Altar at the end, sort of small like basin with water in it, an area for a priest to stand and deliver sermons, etc. There's probably like a church organ to one side, which isn't being played at the minute, presumably only played when there's hymns being sang, which aren't at the minute. You heard some when you came in, but they've obviously finished the service. People are starting to sort of drift out. And as you're all led in, you see a fairly sort of old woman wearing like a nun's habit. There's a crowd of young children gathered around. They're all sort of like excitedly talking all at once to her, and she's sort of like good-naturedly. So you're seeing her sort of like on profile, like from the side, as she's like talking to them. She's like, oh, very, very well. Oh, you're too much for an old woman like me, children. Calm yourself down. And she's basically like giving them a few sweets, pretty much, and sort of saying like, oh yes, yes dear, you were very good during the service. Yes, you've got a wonderful singing voice to another, and like making general chit chat to these children. And as the various worshippers are sort of like filing out, occasionally you see like one of the townsfolk will sort of like go up and like collect their child effectively and like take them away, and they'll be like, oh Reverend Mother, I do hope Samantha wasn't any trouble. And she's like, oh, no trouble at all, she was a little angel, you take care now. And they like go on their way, etc. And slowly like these children are sort of like drifting off with their parents. As the children drift off, the old woman, the Reverend Mother, sort of turns around and she sits down on one of the pews, looking a little bit tired out, obviously because she's been dealing with these kids all the way through the service. And as she turns around so you can see her whole face, you notice something a little bit odd about her. You can't quite place it at first, but as you get closer to her, you can see that one of her eyes is perfectly normal. However, the other is strange. It's like an orange colour, and it appears to have like a black rectangular pupil in it, almost like you might see on a goat or a creature of that sort of nature. But aside from that, she looks perfectly normal, just like an old woman. And you see she's obviously sat down, she's looking a bit worn out, but she's smiling, she's looking around like she's at peace with everything that's going on.
And the nun who was bringing us in has left, has she?
Yeah, she basically sort of gestured at the woman and said, oh, that's the Reverend Mother there. I don't want to impinge on your talk with her. I'll leave you to your business. And then she sort of made herself scarce.
Okay, so I will approach the Reverend and I guess indicate the seat beside her and ask her, is it okay if I sit down?
She says, oh yes, dearie, I'm just resting my old bones for a spell. You have a sit. There's plenty of room on this bench. You have a sit down there.
Yeah. The nun said that you might be able to assist me with some queries I have.
Yes, well, I have been around there a long time. I think the only thing older than me is probably the church we sat in. And she chuckles to herself, and then she says, "Oh, would you like a sweet, dearie?" And she like basically
No.
she takes out what look like some like hard candies and like a hand out of like a pocket and like holds them out. Oh, what about you? What about your friends? And she like holds them out to the rest of you.
Hi, yes.
I love the look on Brock's face, like he's like, I'll have none of your devil candy. Your enchanted candy of death.
Nah, I'll turn that down.
Was it?
So do you say you were going to take one more?
Well, I'll sort of like, step forward. And candy, is it?
Oh yes, it's a peppermint, and it's basically just like a very simple like sugar candy with like some mint flavour in it.
Yeah.
And you take one, you eat it. It's just a simple candy. She says, "Oh, I always keep a few of them on me for the children. When they come to the services." Anyway, now, she turns back to Malcolm. No, what was it you were going to ask me, dearie?
I must travel west here to the
Oh, I see.
ruined abbey.
Oh, the Abbey of St. Cloud.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you might have any information about the abbey.
She says, "Oh, yes, I know a fair bit about it. No, I've not been that way for quite some time myself, but I have travelled past it on occasion. You do hear all these tales about it being haunted and such like, you know."
Indeed. Um, do you know how long it has been abandoned?
She says, "Oh, many years, many years." She says, "Yes, sir. It's quite well known, because it's the site where St. Cloud died."
Oh,
Yes, sir. They say. I mean, this is back in the old days of the Dolmenwood, when the first settlers here, before Prigwort even existed as a town, when the first people were starting to make their way into the woods and really settle in our new home. They say that a great beast in the legends, they call it the eight-legged black unicorn, appeared, and St. Cloud, being a brave man, he battled the beast, giving his fellow friars and monks time to escape from the abbey. And when they dared to return sometime later, they found St. Cloud covered in horrible wounds, lying almost near death. He told them that he had wounded the creature in turn, but his time in this world was coming to an end. He pressed his magical sword into the hand of one of his most trusted priests and told him to take it from the abbey. He didn't believe it was right it should remain in a place that was so stained with the blood of such an evil creature. And the bodies of many of his monks who had not been able to flee the abbey lay about him, apparently slain by the beast. And as his trusted confidant swore that he would take the sword to a place of safety, it is said in the legends that St. Cloud smiled, being at peace with what he had done, and breathed his last.
And do you know the name of his favourite who took the sword?
Alas, no, I'm afraid not. The abbey, I mean, it's a little more than ruins now. It's not been occupied for some time. It was said that it was thought at the time that the presence of such a creature and all the death that had occurred there had sort of tainted the place, and the church chose not to attempt to restore it, reassigning the various priests and friars to other abbeys and churches around the Dolmenwood, and the abbey itself was left there as a monument to that battle. The legends say if you go there at night, you can still hear the shades of those monks and those priests who were slain by the creature wandering the hallways.
And do you believe that it is truly haunted?
He says, "Well, I'm a little old for travelling now. I don't really leave Prigwort much, but after all, there's enough here to keep me busy. But I've in my youth I travelled more in the Dolmenwood, and I've seen some very strange things. I can't say for definite, dearie, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's at least some truth in it. After all, there's no smoke without fire, so they say."
Indeed. Is there anyone you know who has been there more recently?
Most people give it a wide berth, dearie. and you'll be hard pressed to find a number of people travel past it, but venturing within the ruins of the abbey itself, I wouldn't think so. I can't see any person of the faith wanting to travel in there, particularly after the church said that the place was somewhat tainted by the presence of this beast that St. Clwyd fought.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I will leave you to your piece.
Not at all, dearie, not at all. It's nice to rest the old bones and to talk to some new faces. Don't get me wrong, I dearly love all the people of Prigwort, especially the children there. They're simply darling, but it's nice to see some new folk and get some new news.
Indeed. Well, we'll leave you to your day, and we'll be about our business.
Well, have a pleasant day, and may the light of the one true God smile down on you.
That seems unlikely, but who knows?
Well, often light is found in the most unlikely place, dearie. After all, when you're in your darkest, that's when you most need it.
Mm-hmm. And Malcolm will just kind of start walking away, not really willing to engage with.
That's fine.
I'll stay.
Okay.
And I'll sort of step forward and say, so we have been here but for a moment, but what was it? The Saint Wayland?
Oh, yes,
Wayland?
the Church of St. Wayland.
Yes. It is as if the saint is talking to me directly as I stand here within these walls, and I just wondered whether that was a common occurrence or...
She says, I wouldn't say common, dearie, but well, the voice of the one true God and the people that he sent to guide the faithful on the path that we call saints speak to different people in different ways. For some, it may simply be a feeling or a sense of peace. For others, they may hear the voice of the saints. There have been people who claim to hear the voice of the one true God in the rustling of the leaves in the trees, or the wind whistling through the woods, or to even glimpse it in the rays of sun shining off the dew of the morning grass.
Say, even though it is as if with each step that echoes as we move here, I hear the words, but it is very difficult to make sense of them. Is there... pray tell, what are some of the, shall we say, attributes of the saint? Do you know? Could you tell? For I do not recognize this saint from my travels.
Yes, of course, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that, dearie. Let me tell you about St. Wayland. And I'm going to suggest we have a short bathroom break there, because that'll give me time to look that up and also to use the facilities. So we'll be back in, should we say 5 minutes, guys?
Yeah, cool.
Okay, back in 5. Okay, so Reverend Mother Smunk looks at Weimar and she says, of course, St. Waylain of the Sack to give him his full title. Now, this may sound a bit odd, and then she sort of like gently touches you on the shoulder. She's obviously quite frail, you can tell by her twitch. She says, if you look around there on the walls, you see those axes hung up there on the walls, and those two crossed over there. Well, that's because St. Wayland is the patron saint of executioners and axe grinders, but also the saint of mercy of those in power. Now, according to the tales, before he was canonized by the church, Wayland was accused of treason against the crown and of evading the king's taxes. Wayland, he was then a vicar of little repute or reputation. He was imprisoned and he was due to be executed by beheading. However, when he was taken out before the jeering crowds, taken up to the block, his head placed upon the stone, the executioner, his muscles straining with his mighty axe, looked down upon him and lifted the axe ready to strike. But as his gaze fell on the calm, peaceful face of Wayland, ready to accept his fate, he found that he could not make his hands and his arms lower the axe to administer the killing stroke. Of course, at first they thought that it was a simple failing on behalf of the executioner, so his second tried it, and then his assistant, and each of them, as they saw the calm, accepting, peaceful face of Wayland, was unable to bring themselves to administer the killing stroke. After that, Wayland was pardoned by the Lord, who believed that he must truly be blessed by the one true God, to be so at peace that not even his hardened and experienced executioners could bring themselves to deprive the world of such a man. And he went on to perform a number of miraculous activities, so that when he did eventually pass from this world many years later, he was canonized by the church as the patron saint of executioners and merciful lords. And given that it's said in the legends, I don't know how true this is, but that his execution was to take place in this area when many years ago now, before even I was a girl, when the church was originally built here, it was dedicated to St. Wayland, hence the axes and the various decorations you can see around here. And although I can't say I approve of depriving people of their lives, obviously it is a job that has to be done sometimes, and when it is necessary, the king's headsman will make, I suppose almost you might call it a pilgrimage to come to this church to have their axes and to have themselves blessed in the unpleasant work they unfortunately have to do. But I like to think it's the one true God's way of reminding us that even people who might be despised by others for what they do, they still have a place in the grand scheme of things.
I nod along the story, and as she finishes, I'll say, yes, it sounds like it is a story with many faces.
Oh, indeed. Now, as for St. Clwyd, the saint of the abbey that your friend was talking about, or I suppose I should call him St. Clwyd the Refulgent to give him his full title. Well, he's perhaps due to the incident we've talked about, he's the patron saint of repentance and devil slayers, but also the patron saint of goldsmiths and of judges. He's chief amongst all the saints of the Dolmenwood. The number of miraculous things he is supposed to have performed, up to and including the battle with the great dreaded black unicorn, led to him being raised high in the pantheon of saints throughout Dolmenwood.
a very worthy individual to have been uplifted. So,
Indeed, and I mean some of the people around this area, they simply know him as the judge.
no doubt, close associate of the axe grinder.
Well, yes. Although I don't know that they ever actually met in real life, but yes, their interests as saints for their worship would do intersect.
Well, in matters divine, who are we to say what is real?
Quite right. It's not. I mean, although I think mainly out of respect for my age, they've given me the title of Reverend Mother here. I sometimes think that the more you find out, all it does is let you know how little you really know. I mean, I've been in this world for over 30 years now, and I'm still surprised every day by things that I didn't know or I thought I knew, and that I knew wrong. It's why I enjoy spending time with the children. And she gestures generally in the sort of vague area of the door. With the children, they have such wonderful ideas, and they're not yet weighed down by all of the cares that we accumulate like chains as we go through this life, and it sometimes makes me feel young again to listen to how they can get excited over the simplest of things that we might take for granted.
Truly. And speaking of, may I have another?
Oh, yes, of course. And she takes out one of the little like mint candies and offers it to you.
Oh, so I thank you for your time. Now I do believe that is the saint calling. As I just pop it in my mouth and start turning.
Not at all. And as you're about to go, she like gently puts a hand on your leg. She's still sat down, obviously. And she says, "Yes, it's odd. You forgive an old woman her foolishness, but there is something about you. I can't quite put my finger on it."
Oh, I it's, I suppose it's the armor. It is fairly new. It wasn't fitted for me, so perhaps it fits ill. And
No, it's not that. I've spent a long time in this church, and I like thinking over the years I've got something of a sense for the spiritual, you might say. And when I look at you, well, that is again probably an old woman's foolishness, but there's definitely something about you. It's so when you, alone of all your companions, you asked me about the saints, it did not surprise me that you were the one who asked, even though there is no reason. I have no foreknowledge of you before this. We've never met before, to the best of my knowledge, but it did not surprise me that you, out of all your companions, was the one to ask about the saints. Perhaps you have more faith than you think, dearie.
yes, quite right. It is. Shall we say, I have had several revelations in the past few hours. Thank you for your kind words and the wisdom.
Not at all, dearie. Not at all. Would you like another one for the road? And she offers you like another one of these candies.
Well, surely.
Don't eat them all at once, mind. It won't do your teeth any good.
Yeah, I'll take one for the road.
She smiles and says, "Well, may the light of the one true God see you safe with to your destination, dearie. Good traveling.
I'll depart, sort of going past parts of the structure. This is like corner columns and whatnot, just putting a hand on them, just like sort of whispering to myself as I make my slow exit after Malcolm.
Okay, roll me a d6 as you're heading out.
2.
Okay. As you're heading out of the church, you're like you see, you're glancing around at the decorations, you're eating your candy and whatever. You see what appears to be a statue of 3 hooded figures. They've got their heads down. As you sort of like peek under the hoods, there's no like features there. They're just sort of like hooded figures, and you can see that each of them is sort of like standing back to back in like a triangular formation. And as you move around, you see that each of the figures has their hands like that, and they're resting on the pommels like a stone carved sword. And as you look around them, you see that one of the carved stone swords bears a striking resemblance to the blade that you yourself carry.
So the eyes go wide, but I just commit this to memory.
Yeah, and anyone who sees you will just assume you're like, oh my god, this statue. No one thinks anything of it.
Mm-hmm. And that will get brought up once we're somewhere a bit more private.
Yeah, no problem. So you leave, you join your companions outside.
Just before we go, John.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was listening into this conversation with Weimar. Did this old lady say that she'd been around for 30 years?
Yeah.
I let that go by because Weimar's off his rocker right now.
So I'm just as Weimar walks off, he's going to curiously say to her, did you say you've lived for 30 years?
Yes, that's right, dearie. Or thereabouts.
And if I was looking at someone, back from outside of Dolmenwood, how old do I think she looks?
To use sort of like modern sort of phrase, she does look like someone in her 30s. Like now, it's difficult for you to say exactly because like ice walkers don't tend to live to like 30 years old. So
Right.
you've probably never seen a 30-year-old person, but she looks older than like anyone you've seen in the ice walker tribes.
So when we say old, we don't mean grey hair and...
She's got a little bit of grey hair. She's got like a few like wrinkles, but she's not like geriatric, but she does look quite old. Like her face is sort of like quite well weathered. Like I say, she's obviously, as she said, travelled a lot in her youth. She looks like she's sort of slow. She's like slowing down a little bit in her life.
So how old? I mean, how long is a year then in this world then, in comparison to like real life?
Pretty similar to the real world.
So our average life is quite short, but people do actually look old, even though they're sort of dying young.
Yeah, I mean,
in our terms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, for the ice walkers, it's mainly because like you live lives in like terribly harsh conditions, and you hunt incredibly dangerous beasts as like an everyday thing. So like people in the ice walkers, like they don't tend to die of old age. Like either like the cold gets them, like a natural disaster gets them, some beast like gores them and they die of their injuries.
Yeah.
The tribes fighting each other, people die in that way. So, and now there are elders amongst the ice walkers. Like, so there may be some ice walkers who've made it to like 30 or maybe even beyond, but it's like very rare.
Yeah. No, I was just checking that there weren't some, like I was saying before, some sort of time difference. And she looks like she's 90, but she's actually 30. And
yeah, she looks appropriate to her age, as we
okay,
understand.
all right, that's all right.
If there is some sort of time difference, it's not reflected on her features.
Okay, no, I was misunderstanding then. Okay, yep, I shall just travel out then with meet up with the rest.
Yep, you'll meet up outside. That's absolutely fine. What do you want to do?
I seem to have become a conduit to the local saint. I say as I reach Malcolm.
Yeah, Weimar says this in like a really matter-of-fact way. Like you might be like, "Oh, the wind's getting up."
Perhaps it will pass in a number of days. Not greater than
Perhaps
10.
those days it may be numbered 9 because we have traveled 1. No.
as you say that, and they're sort of talking and they're laughing about that, Brock, you happen to notice that like in like Weimar's scabbard where he keeps his like sun sword, there's like a very faint, almost imperceptible. Like you only notice it because you're like on the guard for like magic at all times. You notice there seems to be like a very faint sort of like glow, and obviously just a bit of like the light sort of like coming out over the scabbard.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say that. Are you sure it's not that strange communication that with that sword of yours? I mean, look at it. It's like it's shining even now.
Yeah, you look down and you can see a little like faint glow, although most of the sword's in the scabbard. So,
I'll sort of dig into my armor a bit. I'll take like one of the soft underlayers and like pop it out a bit and sort of like stretch it over the the handle so that it doesn't, shine for all the world to see. And I hadn't noticed that. That is remarkable. A further sign, perhaps. The wise lady back there did mention that I had something of the holy about me, which is not something that has been really something I've associated with myself, but it is coming clear to me now as we stride here on these streets.
I think we can all agree this place is rife with magic.
at which point Weimar, in a voice that's obviously not his own, says, "Well, personally, I think it's just that I'm having a good influence on you."
Yes, and the Saints as well. I would like to go and have a beverage.
Well, that's the best suggestion anyone's had today.
The elf in the also.
Talking of this magic.
Let us go and commune with the spirits.
Okay, so you make your way across town. You pass through the market square, which is your standard sort of town market square. There's a bit of trading going on there, etc. You continue down what appears to be the main thoroughfare, following the directions you were given earlier, and eventually you arrive at the Oath in the Oast. And we're probably, it's by this sort of time, it's probably about 11 in the morning as you arrive at the Oath in the Oast. It's an old Oast house, as the name suggests, that's been converted into a tavern, and it is absolutely like heaving with people. It's busy AF, even though it's like, I mean, perhaps they come up to the lunchtime rush, who knows, but it's heaving with people. You can see there's a creaking wooden sign out the front, which appears to show a sort of slightly misshapen, like hunched backed man on the sign. It's obviously got the Oath in the Oast in like calligraphied writing underneath it. You can see sort of various people moving around, like serving people sat down chatting, etc. And you can see a sort of large, like barrel-chested man who, like, again, looks like he's getting on a bit, probably like early 40s. He's sort of shouting around the room. You see there's like a couple of sort of like quite sort of like strong-looking women who are sort of like obviously the main barmaids. They're like serving people, carrying around platters with like tankards and food and stuff like that. And he's like, this barrel-chested man. He's like, got her, table number 4, bro. And he like shouts to be heard over the hubbub of people talking. And you see her sort of like nod and hold her hand up, and she like drifts over in that direction. As you're walking in, you do notice, Weimar, as you walk in, that just on the inside, you know, where in a house you might see like "Welcome to our happy home" or some sort of twee sentiment written on a sign. There's like a little yeah, that sort of thing. There's like a little like wooden placard like nailed up just on the inner door, and it just says "No fancy folk."
We have come among the common folks. This is This is good.
And indeed, that's how it looks. As you look around, like most of the people you can see look like your normal sort of townsfolk, not your dukes, your nobles. They're like working people. It's like a working man's tavern. You can see as you sort of look through, and it's a fairly expansive room. You see doors coming off, which perhaps lead to like rooms for rent and stuff like that. You can also see at the back is like a large double wooden door, and there's like one of these wooden placards over it, and it just says in like slightly cruder writing, it says bathhouse. What do? You're having to sort of like shout a little bit to make yourself heard even between each other, because there's loads of people who are like getting a bit soused and they're like shouting to each other and laughing. There's people playing cards, stuff like that.
Seems a good place to get a hearty meal and some ale of some sort.
Yeah. No, I think it's rest and recuperation, and then perhaps plotting.
Indeed.
Maybe see if any of the locals are up for a bit of rough and tumble.
Okay, so are you making
fighting
your way
ring in
in?
the back by the time Brock's done.
So you're making your way in?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah, no problem. You head inside. Let's say the hubbub of conversation rises to envelop you. As you walk in, one of these sort of buxom but like pretty like ripped and muscular looking women, like, I mean, I'm not saying they're muscular, but like they look like they could bench press Brock. They're like pretty tough looking. One of them sort of looks at you and says, "Oh, fuck, we're a bit busy at the minute, but just like find yourself a table and we'll be over shortly and we'll take your order." You look around, eventually you can find like a table that's not too crowded. Again, there's still like the loud hubbub of conversation as people are just like shouting at each other between tables and laughing and joking and stuff like that. There's a bit of a lull in the conversation as you walk in, as obviously everyone's like, "Oh, who's that coming in?" Like, "Oh, we don't recognise these folk." But quickly, as you walk in and you like start sitting yourselves down, the conversation rises back up and people just carry on about their business.
Mm-hmm.
After a few moments, one of these women walks over to you, and it's not the same woman who pointed to the table. It's the other woman. She walks over and says, "Oh, I'm Blessy. What can I get for you?"
Whatever is good to drink, and what do you have to eat?
She says, "Oh well, it's not what we've got, sir. It's how deep your pocketbook is. That's more the point, sir."
I'll glance at Malcolm.
Are you looking for a room, sir, at all?
Yes, a room and board for 5.
She says, "Wow, if you're looking for a shared room, and we've only got rooms with 2 beds in, but they'll cost you 4 silver crowns a night."
Have you got nicer rooms?
Says, "Well, we've got private rooms, sir. I mean, there's only half a dozen of them, although I think most of them are free at the minute. But they're 1-person rooms only. But they're 8 silver crowns a night, sir. But they're a lot more private. They're at the far end of the building, so, you know, people in there aren't bothered by the noise and whatnot."
Yeah, 4 of them. Please.
She says, "Well, right you are, sir." And she sort of like obviously takes the money off you, like I say, it's 8 silver pieces per room. And they says, if you want to have a bath brought into your private room, so that'll be another 4 silver crowns on top of that."
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, so she takes another 4 crowns per room, and she says, "All right, if you want to just hang around here, we'll have yourself some drinks, have something to eat. I'll arrange for the baths to be brought into your room. If you just give us a shout like an hour or 2 before you're like planning on taking your bath, and we'll make sure the hot water's put in there and all nicely heated for you and everything."
Perfect.
At which point she she sort of looks in the direction of this bigger barrel-chested man, and I presume, like you say, you've got 5 rooms, like one. Well, yeah, because there's you guys, Quentin, who's like in the background, and Lan.
I guess Lan was sharing, right?
Well, I don't know. I didn't like to assume anything.
Well, they're married and all, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Okay,
I'm assuming we've hired 4. But...
Yeah, that's fine. She looks over at this barrel-chested man and she's like, shouts to be her, she's like, Hagrid, 4 of the private rooms. If you could arrange for the baths to be put in there, and they're going to let us know when they want. And he just sort of looks up and he's like, all right. And he starts like shouting to some like the local lads to get these like baths moved into the rooms and whatever. Blessy then turns back to Audrey and she's like, all right, so can I get you any food, any drink, anything like that? We do have a number of specialty ales. Very proud of them. Brigwart's finest.
Let's hear it.
She says, well, we've got Old Swithener, we've got Wakelake Scarlet, Cobsworth Pale, we've got Oberon's Ambrosial, Brigwort Pure, that's a nice little drop, Smooth Albsey, we've got some Green Aspinthian, Ether Blue, Brigwort Tipple, if that's your fancy, got Pokey Nog, got some Purple Aspinthian, we've got a little bit of night liquor still in, I think, Porridge Full Moon, that's very nice, Minstrel's Cordial, and then Health Widdens as well.
The Ambrosial.
Oh, Lord Oberon's Ambrosial. Very good you are, sir. Now, that's a gold crown for a mug of that.
I will have the green one, whatever that one was.
Oh, the Green Aspinthian, sir.
Yeah, that's the
a good
one.
choice. Good choice. Okay, so obviously she takes a gold piece for the Ambrosial, and the Green Aspinthian is 5 silver pieces. She brings over the Ambrosial, and it's this pretty unappetizing, like flat-looking, like insipid brown-coloured ale, and the taste of it is like it's a bit like a sort of like sour, like a rose taste, but like with a bit of a sort of sour aftertaste. But as you're sort of taking a sip of it, she says, "Oh, I know it's a bit sour, sir, but well, it will see you off to sleep right and proper." In fact, some of the local herbalists, they actually recommend it to people who are having trouble sleeping.
And I'll just put up 2 fingers for myself and Lan. That's the strongest you got.
Oh, she's like are you sure, sir?
Just give her a convincing nod.
She says, forgive me for asking, sir. I don't mean to seem forward, but you and your good lady, are you married? Are you?
Yes, that's correct.
She sort of shouts up and she's like, oh, 2 health widdens for the happy couple over here. At which point there's like a bit of general like laughter from around, and these like you charge like 3 silver crowns for like each of those, so 6 in total. These flagons are brought over, and there's this strange like grey semi-coagulated liquid in there, almost like the texture of like wallpaper paste. But you're like, oh, this looks horrible. But as you smell it, it's actually got this really nice like sort of plum and like cinnamony scent that like wafts up out of it. And as you're sort of like you sniffing it, and like Lan likewise is like looking a bit unsure of it. One of the locals like on the next table like leans back and he in his chair and he's like, "Oh, you'll have a good night if you and the lady are drinking that, son."
With that, I'll take a big gulp of it.
He's like, "You know what I mean?" Yeah, you take a big gulp of it. It's an odd texture. So like I say, it's slightly sort of slimy, like pasty texture, but it does taste very pleasant. I suppose the nearest I can imagine it is like if you'd taken some very watery porridge, put like a load of plums in it, and then like sprinkled some cinnamon on the top, then you like blended it in a food blender and drank it. That's what it tastes like. But yeah, it's quite nice.
Okay.
And after like drinking it for a bit, you're the rest of you guys notice that a number of like looks start passing between like Brock and Lan.
I'll be rather ignorant of that as I'm sort of whispering into my mug to Lord Oberon about the significance of dreams.
Indeed.
Getting a bit slurred as I took a little bit too much, a little bit too quick. Apparently, it's a sedative, so I was slowing down a bit, slurring a bit into my mug about how I've come to discuss dreams with Lord Oberon.
Okay, so as like a mug of green, a Spinthian is set in front of you, Malcolm. We've got like Brock and Lan who are like, time for an early night, and then we've got like Weimar sort of staring into his, and he's like, "See, the thing they don't understand, Oberon, about these dreams." And I'm talking to his mug.
Yeah, Master Bruce, I failed you. It's along the lines of like, oh, the summer nights are very, very enchanted, and I often dream of the green pastures over the hill. It's just the continuous, like, just full of consciousness nonsense about dreams.
Indeed. And this flagon is put down in front of you, Malcolm. It's this fizzy lime green liquid that has a smell almost like sort of like freshly cooked grass, and it tastes very light and very pleasant. It's got like it's not like a heavy drink. It's got like a fairly light sort of like herby sort of flavour to it. And after you've sucked your flagon down, and it's not like the strongest like ale in the place, but you know, it's all right. I mean, you're not smashed, but you're feeling a bit merry. And occasionally, as you're sort of like looking around, you notice that occasionally there appears to be like a vague sort of like flickering like green outline around things, but it's only like at the corner of your eye. So you might like you see someone move in the corner of your eye, and they're like outlined by green, but then when you look at them, they look fine, and you see something over there. So it's a little bit disorientating at first, but you know, you find it, and actually it feels oddly sort of normal to you, which is itself a little bit concerning, as though like part of you's just like, oh yeah, things being outlined with strange light sounds about right.
Okay, cool. So I will, after I have my beer and some food, I'll leave the guys to their mumbling. My guess is Brock and Lan are probably already gone, and I will go for my bath.
Yeah. So
Wash off the grime.
You give them a shout, and so like an hour later, you told your bath's ready. You head into your room. It's not the most luxurious and fancy of rooms, but it's nice. You know, you've got your private bed. It's like a little dresser, a little table, all the sort of comforts you would expect. Like, quite upmarket for saying it's like a working man's tavern. And then obviously having been like dragged into the far end of the room, it's basically like a tin bath. And as you're sort of given the nod, all the bath's ready, you head in and you can see like hot water's been put in it, there's steam rising up, and there's been like a big sort of jug of cold water put next to it, so you know if it's too hot for you, you can put a little bit of that in to let the temperature down a little bit. And the lad who stood at the door, he says, "Oh, if you need it topping up, sir, just give us a shout at the bar, and we'll come and top it up for you."
Cool, definitely will. Thank you very much.
And he turns and starts.
Silver coin.
He's like, "Oh, thank you, sir," and he starts walking away. As he's walking away, however, and you turn to go back into the room, you notice that there's like a little sort of clay plate just like put down in the corner of the corridor, like near your room, and you see a few near other rooms, and you can see there's like a little mug with some sort of white liquid on it, and what looks like a little biscuit of some kind put on the plate, and it's just like on the floor in the corridor.
Okay. So I call out to the little fella. Hey, what's this plate and mug on the floor for?
He's like, oh, he says, oh, it's for the little people, sir. He says, that's just like local superstition, you know what they say, oh, if you leave a glass of milk and a biscuit out for the little people, they won't cause any trouble in your home. They'll just take the biscuit and the milk and they'll leave things be. And sometimes they might even be helpful, like help you find lost stuff and things like that. Just a local superstition, sir.
Okay. And does anyone ever drink the milk?
he says, "Well, I probably shouldn't tell you this, sir, but well, if a few of us lads who are helping out, we wake up and we've had a bit of a heavy night, a little bit of milk and a biscuit in the morning can sometimes be just the ticket." So
Right.
don't tell anyone I told you, sir. And he laughs and he starts walking off.
Okay. Cool. So I'll just close my door and
Indeed,
settle down for the night.
you turn back round to head back into the room, and it's then you notice that there's a very tiny man sat next to the mug of milk. A little tiny wizened man with a little wispy beard
Oh.
and a little like brown pointy leather hat and like leather clothing, and he's going like this, like 'cause he's tiny compared to the normal size cup, and he's going. Doesn't seem to paying you any mind, but he's like lifting the cup up and like you're like.
Hello.
He's like.
How's your milk?
He drops the milk because he seems surprised that you've seen him, and as you look at him, you can see even as you're directly looking at him, he's like outlined with this strange like green glow.
Okay.
He
Did he say anything?
He sort of like he sort of peers at you cautiously as though he's not really sure what to do, and then he's, I presume you're still wearing like your hooded cloak and all of that malarkey. Then he sort of goes.
So I'll pull my hood down, I guess.
You pull your hood down, and as like your ears are like revealed, his eyes go wide for me, and then in like a really like squeaky high pitched voice, which I'm probably incapable of doing, he immediately says, he's like, "Oh, sorry sir, I didn't mean no offence by it, sir. Sorry, sir."
Oh no harm. Help yourself. What's your name?
He says, "Oh, Grimwald, sir.
Ah.
What doing no harm? Not doing no harm. Just walking around and having a look at everything ship shape and having a little bit of milk and a biscuit. No harm meant, sir. No harm meant."
Oh no.
And he
Not
looks
at all.
genuinely like petrified.
So tell me, Grimald, is this where you live?
He says, yeah. There's loads of us in town, sir.
Okay. And the normal folk can't see you?
Oh no, sir. That won't be right at all, sir.
Oh. And yet I can see you somehow.
He says, well, yeah, of course you can.
Oh, and
He
why
says,
is that?
I'm sorry. He says, I'm sorry, your lordship. I didn't realise what with the hood and all.
Oh.
So I didn't mean no offence.
No, none taken. And what do your people do to you?
He says, we and he's like stammering over his words. He's like still quite panicked. He said, "Oh, we tidy things up, and if people leave us a bit of milk and a bit of biscuit. Occasionally, if we find like lost stuff, we put it in places where they can find it. I mean, nothing like your grand and terrible self, your lordship. I'm sure."
Well, I'm not that grand, not that terrible. You fear the elves of this land, so?
He says, well, it's not that, sir. It's just obviously you're far higher in the earl's esteem than a lowly sprite like myself.
Okay. And which earl is this?
He says, "Oh, surely you're joking with me, sir." He says, everyone knows about the earl, even the local humans in Prickwall know about him.
Okay. And can you tell me about him?
He says, the Earl of Yellow, sir. He doesn't come to the mortal world much himself, but he's always very interested in what's going on. So we see plenty of his emissaries, and he sort of like bows to you, coming through here. I mean, normally they don't really mix with the mortal folk.
Aye.
Your lordship, that's why I mistook you for one of them. Again, no offence meant, your lordship, no offence meant. But yeah, normally they sort of do their thing quietly and in the shadows, and like us, like the normal folk don't really see them. And obviously normally they wouldn't speak to a lowly sprite like myself.
Indeed. And tell me, is the Earl of Yellow known by any other names? The Cold Prince or some other such name, perhaps?
At which point he says, oh no, he says the Cold Prince is an entirely different lord, sir. Yeah, he's not been in the Dolmenwood for hundreds of years, sir. Well, thousands.
Okay.
Ever since they did the thing.
Aye.
But you know all about that, your lordship, I'm sure, more than a humble sprite like myself.
Yes, but perhaps not as much as I might know.
He says, if you don't mind me saying, sir, where's your where's your great golden wolf? Surely you haven't brought that in here where the normal folk can see it.
I think that you are possibly mistaking me for someone else.
I'm terribly sorry, your lordship. I assumed you were an emissary from the Earl. Are you a visitor from one of the other courts? I didn't mean any disrespect, your lordship.
No, just relax. Everything is okay. I come from a distant land and I am not as familiar with the local court as I might be.
Oh, of course.
And the emissaries of the Earl of Yellow, what is their purpose? What do they come to this land to do?
He says, well, as I say, the Earl himself doesn't visit the mortal realm. He mostly stays in a Spoondrift Castle, but in Wyforth. But he's very interested in all the mortal goings on. From what I hear, he finds all the mortal goings on very amusing, and he mostly sends his emissaries out to I suppose to have a bit of fun and to report back to him about what's going on with the mortals and whatnot.
Okay. And do you know how one might come to this Spoondrift Castle?
He says, well, obviously as a lowly sprite myself, I wouldn't be able to go there, but I've heard there are hidden doorways in the Dolmenwood. Not that I know where they were, but there are hidden doorways to his domain in the Dolmenwood, and obviously there's the fairy roads, of course, sir.
Okay.
And this whole town, I don't know if there's any people old enough in this town to remember, but this whole area that it's in is known as the Yellow Wood. Sort of like back in the old days, although it's a name that's been a little bit forgotten by the mortal folk now, sir.
Hey, the Yellow Wood. That is indeed interesting.
I mean, I've even heard. I'm sorry for interrupting your lordship. Please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, your lordship, that I've even heard that some of the people in the mortal folk in this town pay allegiance to the Earl as well as us fairy folk.
Okay. And are such mortals marked in any way?
I don't believe so, sir. But not as far as I'm aware. I mean, I've never. It's only what I've heard. I don't know how true it is.
Okay. And besides the sprites, is there other creatures in the Yellow Wood or in the city?
Oh, there's many of the fair folk around the woods. So some can be seen by mortal folk. Some can't. I mean, there's only really one place in the woods you won't find the fair folk, to be honest, sir.
And what place is that?
He says, "Oh, that's in the great ring of Chell to the west, sir. Ever since you know the thing happened to your lordship, our sort can't go in there."
Ah, that is interesting. And how far to the west is that? Do you know?
He says, "Well, it starts. I think. Well, I mean, for tall folk like yourself, your lordship, I think it'd be a couple of days. There's an old ruined building, like a church or something, that's just on the border of it.
The Abbey, perchance?
Oh, I wouldn't know what they call it, sir. But I only know because I've heard some of the obviously we can't go in to churches and the like, sir. But I've heard from some of the people coming out mentioning the I think they called it an abbey. Yeah, they said it was in ruins though, and well, from what I know, that's on the very edge of where the great ring of Chell is, and we can't pass beyond it. It's almost like from what I mean, I've never tried it myself, sir, but from what I've heard, it's almost like a wall, and we can't go in there. I think that's probably the only place you won't find a fair folk around in the Dolmenwood. Although, like I say, your lordship, we might not always be seen by the common folk, but we're there.
Okay.
I mean, even the Cold Prince still has a couple of emissaries in the woodland. I mean, it's written into the ancient fabrics of the woodlands. Even since the thing, they couldn't stop that. Even though he can't come in himself anymore, he's allowed to have a couple of people in here to represent him.
Okay. And are there many other Fey Lords, or is it just the Earl of Yellow?
Oh yes, there's a number of them, sir. But obviously they mostly stay to their own domains. They don't tend to come to the Dolmenwood themselves many times, and they have varying different levels of interest in what's going on. I mean, most of them aren't really that bothered about what the mortals are up to in the Dolmenwood, unless their interests somehow intersect. But like I say, the Earl, and the reason, again, forgive me, your lordship, the reason I assumed you were an emissary from the Earl is because he's one of the few that takes an active interest in what the mortals get up to. So I just assumed that,
Okay.
given your obvious heritage, that you must have been sent by the Earl.
No, but I do need to talk to him. Is there any of the fair folk who might help me gain an audience with him?
You'd have to speak to one of his emissaries, your lordship, and I'm very sorry. I would love to help you, but as I say, I'm just a lowly sprite. I don't really, I've not seen any for a good deal of time.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for your time, and enjoy your milk and your biscuit.
Oh, thank you, your lordship. But obviously, you shut the door and you head into your room and start enjoying your bath. As you do that, you hear like the sound of like little feet walking away from your door and getting a bit fainter. Then you hear like a second voice be like, "Hey, what was all that about?" And he's like, "Oh, there's one of the lords like staying in that room just down there." What? Like out in the open? Yeah, like just like mixing with like the mortal folk, like it ain't even a thing. Oh, really? Nah. Yeah, I told you he spoke to me. Oh, one of the lords, I spoke to you. And then they obviously like carry on walking away, and their sort of conversation trails away.
Okay.
And you get in and you have a lovely warm bath. It's very nice and refreshing. Is there anything else anyone wants to do before the end of the day, as you all sort of take your various rest and repose?
Not too many details, Brock.
I mean, yeah, I won't need to give you details. I think it'd be quite vocal, to be honest.
That's it. I think we can draw a veil over what Brock gets up to, but suffice to say that, like, since your rooms are all fairly near to each other, you will all hear what Brock's getting up to.
I think I might do some sleepwalking. Perhaps in a sort of fairy-inspired dream. So maybe I go to my room to have a rest, and maybe I return like an hour later, sleepwalking back into the common room to continue bullshit antics. Maybe drink some more.
Okay.
Then return once again.
So, what we're going to say is, as you go to sleep, after you've wandered about a bit, you eventually sort of drift off into a dream-filled slumber, and in your dream-filled slumber, you have a dream where you see perhaps inspired by what you saw at the church, you see a hooded figure wearing like long white flowing robes. As you're watching, the figure is surrounded by a number of different people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people around him. And as you watch, at first they appear to be like talking quite happily amongst themselves, this white figure in the middle talking to these other figures who are various different, they look human, but they're like various different dresses and ethnicities, etc. And at some point, seemingly without any real reason, these figures all grab hold of like a different part of the robe on this cloaked figure, and they start like pulling it in different directions. And at first, this cloaked figure's just sort of like that, being pulled in all different directions. Then you start hearing like this, and you see like tears start appearing in the robe. As they all continue to pull in different directions, the robe is pulled apart, and there is this blinding flash. And when the flash fades, there's still these 6 people stood around, but where the white figure once stood, there are now 3 swords lying on the ground.
And I guess that's the part of my sort of dream where I've drawn my sword as well, because I see it in the dream. Maybe I even have maybe tossed it onto my room's floor, and that's where I see in the dream where the swords are now.
Well, I tell you what, just for the fun of it, roll me a d6.
Three. Like
Okay.
the swords.
Indeed. So, as you're sort of having this dream, you see these 3 swords, this figure torn apart, and you sort of reach down in the dream and you're holding up the sun sword, your own sword, and then as you're sort of about to throw it down, you hear sort of seemingly far away and quiet at first but getting louder, a female voice being like, "You alright, mate? Hello? Hello?" And as you snap out of the dream and you look around, you see that you're stood with the sun sword out, with light obviously coming out of it because you've drawn it, and you're basically stood there in whatever night clothes you wear in the main bar area, which is of course now empty because the place is shut. And you can see one of these muscular women who seems to be help run the place is stood there in a nightgown, and she's sort of looking at you a bit concerned, and she's basically sort of holding her hands like that, and she's gone, "You alright, mate? Everything okay?
I'll
We good?"
snap my head towards her and just wild-eyed like a mushroom eating prophet in the wilderness. Yes, I was having a wonderful dream. I apologize for the sword. Did I bring the scabbard, or is it just the sword?
No, you can't see the scabbard. I mean,
Yeah.
presumably it's still in your room, and you just pull
I
that
was
out.
like, I apologize for the sword, and then go for the scabbard. It's not there, so I just put it under my night clothes and sort of stagger back into my room.
Yeah, as you're sort of heading away, she's like, oh, you had a bit too much, did you, sir?
Oh, it is Oberon's ambrosial, a wonderful spirit, very talkative.
Oh, right, yeah, I get you, sir. Yeah, it does have that effect on some people, you know. Some people get their feet to wandering when they should be lying still. But don't worry about it, sir. No harm caused. So you get yourself back to your room and have a good night's sleep.
Wonderful, thank you, and thanks to Lord Oberon as well.
Well, I'll drink to that sword. I'll put it up for a few hours. To be honest, it's a bit late. But yeah, you try and get a bit more shut eye, sir. I might advise you just to lock your door and like put the key in the drawer on the dresser or something. Just in case your feet get to wandering again, sir.
Wonderful. Yes, I shall. And I stagger back and put the sword in the scabbard, lock the door, and I'll go under my bed.
As you slide the sword back into the scabbard, you hear like the sword's voice being like, what's going on?
No, it is nothing. It is but Lord Oberon's chariot has drawn very close to us. As I pack myself under my bed to sort of prevent myself from wandering.
Yeah.
It's like go there, get my linens and whatnot, just like stuff myself under the bed and just like hug the sword in the scabbard. It's like, but the chariot is gone now. We can sleep.
Indeed, and sleep you do. The rest of the night passes fairly uneventfully. If any of you are down hit points, you can regain 1d3 hit points, as per usual, for rest. Obviously, you've sort of ate and drank in the tavern, so you don't really need to, because there'll have been like a bit of bread and cheese around with your drinks or whatever, even though you didn't order a meal, so you don't need to like spend any rations for today. And you all wake up the next morning. As you look out of the little sort of windows, it's probably about 6 a.m. ish. You look out of the windows, you can see the warm autumnal sunlight of the Dolmenwood shining down. You can hear the sort of hubbub of conversation, very quiet at first, but starting to get a little bit louder as obviously people are getting up in the morning, going about their business. You can hear like carts rumbling around and stuff like that. As it sort of hits the hour, you hear the sound of church bells in the distance coming from the Church of St. Wayland, sort of chiming the hour. And you presumably all meet up in the common area. Feel free to discuss, plan your actions, and we'll crack on from there. So it's over to you guys.
So I'll explain briefly about the sprite and the Great Ring of Chell that seems to start near the Abbey, and that there's an area where the fair folk won't go, and that it has existed since the wood was moved, so it may be a place to take the sun sword to see if it can maybe from there sense the green steel. And I'll also explain about the elves being emissaries of the Erin of Yellow and having joined the Golden Wolves, and that if we come across one, that perhaps an audience with the Earl might provide some enlightenment in terms of what happened a few thousand years ago.
That sounds very helpful. If there's even a chance of that, I think we should take it, even if it doesn't lead us to the green steel.
Yeah.
Didn't you say it's from almost a different world or
Yeah, but
place?
he's watched this world for years. So he may have some insight that we lack. But I don't know how to find one of these emissaries unless we happen to pass one.
Well, from what Malcolm told us before, Brock was thinking if we were lucky enough or we could manage to find this missing powerful weapon that this lady, not lady, the Drune talked of, then maybe you could summon this spiritual elf character that you met some days back and see if it would be something we could exchange for this green steel. You know, and see if we could do a swap. And then maybe not have to get involved with the Drune at all.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yeah, and it may act as a focal point, though not as strong, and allow the Dolmenwood to return more naturally to its original location.
Isn't this elf this spiritual elf, is she not an imp? Some sort of...
She's an emissary of a different
type.
A different lord, yeah. So there's multiple Fey lords, according to this sprite. And my friend is an emissary of the Cold Prince, and it feels like it's the Earl of Yellow who has the most information about the area.
One thing I will point out as well is, since you've woken up, Malcolm, you've noticed that you're no longer seeing like the green haze around anything.
Okay. So I might buy 2 points of that to bring with me in the bottle, because that might be useful when the time comes.
Yeah, that's fine. You can easily do that. You buy, they're like little clay jugs, really, like corks in them. You buy 2 of those of green aspinthium. They, like I say, it's 5 silver crowns each.
Okay.
Brock confirms he don't need any of that drink. He's not going to take any of that with him.
As you say that, Lan sort of says, maybe you should like buy a couple of those jugs of that drink we had the other night.
You don't need that. Maybe just a shot glass.
As you're chatting, you hear from just outside the oath in the Oast, you hear a loud voice go, "Come on, let's be off with you. We'll see what Captain Hogwash has got to say to you." And then you hear like a muffled, like slightly higher pitched voice, like clearly protesting, but you can't really hear what it's saying.
Is it outside, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Malcolm, being a little bit hungover and dead curious, will jump up and walk out the door and see what the kerfuffle is.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You see a man wearing a red tabard and sort of like bits of chainmail and sort of like working trousers. And on this tabard, there's like a gold embroidered sort of like beer flagon. And he appears to be like dragging this youth by his collar, like by the scruff of his neck, and he's like appears to be like dragging him down the street. And this youth's like, "Oh, didn't mean no harm." And he's like, "Yeah, well, tell it to Captain Hogwash. We'll see what he's got to say about this." And he's like dragging this like youth who's like trying to struggle, but he obviously like can't get away.
What seems to be the problem? I'll call out as I walk towards him.
He sort of looks up at you and he's like, "Oh, it's just the Bounders playing up against, sir. Nothing to worry about."
And what are the Bounders, pray tell?
The young lad like sort of opens his mouth as though he's going to say something. The guy like cuffs him round the back of the head and he's like, "Oh, well, I've last sight of you." And he's like, "Oh, the Bounders, they're this this group of like youths, mostly like rich, spoiled little oiks like this one here, and wow, they've got it into their mind that Prigwart's in danger from what they call wrong-uns, which basically, between you and me, sir, is pretty much anyone they don't like the look of. That's how it seems to shake down, and they cause trouble, vandalism, like harassing people and whatnot, mostly like travellers through it, anyone they think looks a bit different. So I'm going to drag this little nurk here up in front of the captain of the Ale Guard, and well, I'm sure, given that they tend to all come from like the well-to-do, so he'll probably get a bit of a slap on the wrist, and he'll be out getting time for tea. But well, we can't have him running around stirring up trouble, can we?
Indeed. And tell me, does the kid look like he's well dressed?
He basically looks as though he's tried to sort of dress down in like sort of commoner's clothing, but obviously from the quality of the clothing he's wearing, he presumably comes from like a pretty well-off family. So it's like he's wearing like commoner's gear, but it's like designer label commoner's gear.
Okay. Right. So, I'm quite interested in these bounders. I'm wondering if I might speak to your charge for a moment and get him to answer some of my questions.
Wow. I don't suppose I see the harm in that, sir. Keep an eye on him, though. They can be slippery customers.
No, absolutely, yes. I have my dog, my bull mastiff. So
he looks. This Ale Guard looks down at the dog and he says, "Oh, it's a fine-looking beast, Dolmenwood Mastiff. Good breed, that's good breed."
Absolutely. Tear him to shreds if he decided to run away.
That's it. I've heard. Oh yeah, and he seems to like. Obviously, he's quite enthusiastic about dogs. He seems to have like forgot the young lad for a minute, and he's like, "How are you finding like training him, sir? I've heard they've got a bit of a temper on him."
No, this one does what it's told. Well trained. Only eats the people I tell it to eat.
He sort of nods, and you see like a little bit of a smirk in the corner of his mouth. As like the young lad's like, So while this is going on, what are Brock and Weimar up to?
I mean, this all making sort of sense? Is this guy, or this kid, is he sort of got like fairly good clothing and?
Yeah, like I say, he's
not like a
basically
street urchin.
he looks like he's like a very rich person who's tried to like dress down to like mix in with the common folk, but he doesn't really look like he knows how to do it. So like I say, it's basically like he's wearing like common workers gear, but it's like Gucci common workers gear. It sticks out a mile. Like you just look at a normal person, you look at him, and you're like, oh, he's got money.
Yeah. Okay, so it all seems to be sort of ringing true.
Yeah.
What this guard's saying and stuff. So I don't think Brox wants to get involved in the local politics and dishing out punishment. So he'll be just listening in and seeing if there's anything we can get from the information, but he's not going to interfere.
Okay, what about Weimar?
Having a very low-key conversation with Malcolm's pet.
Nice.
Just on the sides, it's like nothing fancy, no big moves. Just like, really? I guess so.
Okay, so Malcolm, you've been given permission by this Ale God to like question this young lad.
So I'll just sit down beside him, and say, "Tell me about the Bounders and what it is that you stand for."
He says, well, look, I don't want to speak ill of like the Ale God, but like everyone knows, and he sort of like he looks across as though he's worried like the guard's going to like come in and like slap him around the back of the head again, and he's like, but everyone knows they're employed by the Council of Brewmasters, so everyone knows that they mostly care about like trade and stuff like that. So stuff outside that they tend not to bother so much. And well, all manner of stuff goes on that like they're not really interested in because it doesn't impact trade. So, a few of us, Jongler's idea. A few of us got together and we thought, well, if the Elgard aren't sorting it out and they're not going to look after the people, we've got to take a stand ourselves. I mean, there's all sorts of like Rongans and creatures coming out of the woodlands and whatever, and if they're not going to look after us, we've got to look after ourselves. When Prigwart's a nice, clean, nice place, and we want it to stay like that. We don't want any of these like horrible like woodland folk and your fair folk and your whatnots coming in here and messing it all up and making it so like your normal folk can't have a peaceful day's work.
Okay, and tell me about these Rongans. What are they?
He says, there's loads of different, and he's getting a bit more enthusiastic now as he thinks, oh, maybe you're buying into what he's selling. He's like, oh, there's all sorts of Rongans, sir. He says, well, there's strange folk who live out in the woods who they've dabbled in things they shouldn't be dabbling in, and it's like changed a bit. Then there's all sorts of people from like foreign parts coming in, bringing their strange ways in.
Aye.
And
Indeed.
he says, oh, and he says, then there's like the beastmen out in the woodlands, and yeah, okay. Some people say, oh yeah, well, there's only like the crookhorns and that up in the northern woods who are like horrible and like nasty. Oh, the others are quite civilized. I don't believe it, sir. I think they're all cut from the same cloth.
Right.
A beastman's a beastman, sir.
Indeed. And tell me, why is it you have a problem with the fair folk?
He says, well, everyone knows they go around like stealing babies and like poisoning milk and like making your cow's milk sour and like stealing your valuables and like swapping people out with their own and stuff like that. Everyone knows that. And he's getting quite animated and like excited as he's like.
So talk to me about your friend Jungler, whose idea this whole thing was. Who's he?
He says, Jungler. He says, well, he's a nice enough fellow. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a little bit quirky 'cause he's getting on a little bit, but he's a lot older than most of us. But he's got the right idea. It was his original idea to the younger people of Prigwort should like step up and do something if the older people weren't willing to do it. You know what I mean?
I do.
Like if we can't look after ourselves, who's going to? That's what I ask you. We'll have all sorts of foreigners and Rongans and fair folk and all that coming in here, changing our way of life, and we don't want it. Okay. And yeah, okay, like the man said then, all right, yeah, okay, we occasionally do a bit of vandalism and we do a bit of this and that, but it's mostly just to try and like scare the Rongans out. Very rarely goes to any more than that. Most folk, they get the message, oh, you're not wanted here, and they move on, and that's fine with us. Once it's outside Prigwort, not our problem.
Okay. And who did you see this morning that caused the damage? Who were you scaring this morning?
He says, wow, I saw this merchant, right? And wow, if he wasn't a beastman, I don't know what is. Great big hairy fella, hair all over him. And I said, well, there's a Rongan if ever I saw one. So me and a couple of other lads, we basically, on one of his wagons while he was away getting a drink, we basically painted "Get Out of Prigwort" on the side of his wagon in paint. That was it. Didn't harm no one, didn't cause no massive damage. Just painted like "Get Out" on the side of his wagon. And with most of them, that's all it takes. But well, we got seen by one of the Elgard, didn't we? And well, I was the slowest, unfortunately, so I got pinched by him.
Right. Someone has to be.
Yeah.
So tell me, if I wanted to know more, where would I find this jungler?
He says, well, you can normally find him in one of the taverns or whatnot around the city most of the time.
Okay. And where does he live?
He says, oh, he's got a place up in the north side of the city. Quite a nice little pile it is.
Okay. Cool. And then I guess I'll turn to the guard and say, what do you know about this jungler character who leads the Bounders?
It's like, Stash jungler, the right troublemaker. You think a man of his age would know better, but wow, I reckon the drink's got to his brain personally. That he always looks like he's been dragged through a hedge backwards. His hair's everywhere. He wears ridiculous, brightly coloured clothes. It's all patched together. Apparently, he used to come from some moneyed family, but they've fallen on hard times. Apparently, he's the great nephew of some noble such and such. I don't know, and I think he's got relatives who run the Clashed Ankle at one of the taverns, but I think they've pretty much disavowed him because of the trouble he causes. He's normally we pick him up every few weeks or so. He's got drunk in a tavern. He's whooping and jeering and carrying on like an idiot. I swear he's got the brains of a teenager, like trapped in a grown man's body. And this bounders malarkey, it's just the latest foolishness he's got himself into. To me, it seems like a man who should know better. He's put some stupid ideas in the heads of young people who don't know any better, and as a result, they're causing trouble, and it's me and the rest of the Ale Guard who have to go around and like pick up the pieces.
Tough life.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, most of them are too young to know any better, so they get a bit of a slap on the wrist. Out they go. Hopefully they've learned their lesson. But well, Jongler, if he should know better. I mean, if we could pinch him for any of the more serious infractions, well, he'd have a much tougher time of it. But well, I'll say what you want for the fella. He's a bit canny. They never find him at the scene of any crimes.
It's the canny ones you have to watch.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
Well, sorry for delaying you, and many thanks for allowing me to talk to your charge. And I'll flick him a gold sovereign. And
he says much he sort of catches it, but then he offers it back to you. So much appreciated, sir, but sorry, I can't accept it while I'm on duty. You know, it might be seen as a bribe or something of that matter, but I appreciate the sentiment, sir. And he gives you the gold piece back. And he grabs the kid by the scruff of the neck and he's like, right, come on, you've got a date with the commander, come on. And he starts dragging him off down the street as the young lad's like, oh, we didn't really do any harm. Like, oh, we do a bit of pain. He's like, yeah, come on, tell it to the captain. And drags him off down the street.
Okay, so I guess we go back inside to finish our breakfast.
Yeah, no problem. You head back in. Is there anything in particular you want to eat, or?
No, I think we just want to... There's nothing else we want to do in town, I don't think, is there? We just want to head out to the Abbey, is there?
No, I think we're ready to explore further.
We have the blessing, so...
Do we want to explore Mercs or something, or do we think we're probably okay, or...
That's a good question.
Where's
Have you
that?
seen any of that type of activity, John? Sort of like swords for hire
All right.
in our time here. I mean, because I kind of get the feeling that it's being a little bit more chill on that front, and it's mostly being the town guard that we've
Yeah, I
seen.
mean, the guardsman didn't sort of seem to have any idea of that, did he?
I'll tell you what one of you, and I'll leave it down to you which one of you it is, make me a charisma roll. Because I'm assuming that if you're interested, you're probably going to have asked about a bit.
I'm not horrendous.
Got 13.
I'm a little bit more horrendous than you, so you should go.
I'm not good. I'm not good.
Okay. Well, I'll give it a try.
There we go.
Okay. I'm just going to do a quick roll. Okay, so you ask around and you pop your head into a few other taverns and whatnot. You're asking around. Over the course of that, obviously you have to buy people a few drinks and whatnot to get them to talk to you as a stranger. So the whole thing costs you about 5 gold pieces.
Ooh.
However, at the end of that and asking around, you've actually got you've managed to find a couple of people who are willing to sort of be hired on as henchmen.
Nice.
And I'm going to ask, since Brock, you're the one who made the charisma roll, I'm going to ask, can Malcolm and Weimar, can you both roll me a D100?
Got a 70.
Okay.
A 50.
Yeah, round numbers only.
Yeah. That means
Okay.
you get 10, right?
No, unfortunately not. Basically, what it means is it's to see what sort of people you've attracted, basically. And you've attracted a couple of sort of fairly standard, sort of like warrior, like man-at-arms type people. One of them looks like a little bit more accomplished than the other. One of them looks like, I'm like a bit of a peasant who like picked up a spear like a few weeks ago and I've decided I can make it in the big bad world. Whereas the other looks like, I've actually like seen some stuff.
One mercenary and one D&D character.
Pretty much.
I guess we're taking people on because we could use the help.
Yeah. Even if it's only to carry the luggage.
Yeah. Or torches. That's a very honorable old profession.
Let's just make sure we dress them in red armor, right?
Okay, let's make a couple of rolls.
The only other thing I thought of is at some stage we should probably pick up some more garlic before we head back. Since it's plentiful.
Oh yeah, in like large quantities. I've got like a bushel or two right now, but yeah, for when we actually return, we should have like a supply of garlic.
Yeah.
Okay, so the people you have picked up, the sort of man-at-arms, sort of peasant levy sort of guy is called Roger, and the slightly more practiced person is a woman called Clement. In terms of rates of pay, they're asking for, so I'm rolling this on some random tables here. I'm going to ask, Malcolm, can you roll me a D30? You'll probably have to type that into the dice thing for Roger. And Weimar, can you roll me a D30 for Clement? And this is to see what sort of thing they're armed with, what sort of equipment they've got.
21 for Roger.
Okay. Oh, that's all right.
What was it? D30?
Yep.
28.
28. Okay.
I'm so close to being another 21.
Okay, so despite having come from humble stock, Roger has managed to scare himself up a longsword and a shield from somewhere. Clement, who is obviously more of a practiced warrior, has banded mail, a longsword, a shield and a spear.
Can we buy them plate in town?
Yeah.
Alright, so let's just assume we're going to buy them plate.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so in terms of gold, Roger is asking for 21 silver pieces a day. And the more experienced fighter, Clement, is asking for 28 gold pieces a day.
Uh, 28 gold per day.
Yeah, and like I say, 21 silver if you want the the less experienced Roger as well.
I think we want both, right? It's pricey, but
Well, it's not very far, is it? This place, so it's
No.
only a
And
couple
you're
of
buying them both plates.
few days.
yes, please.
Okay. Just making a note. There's obviously I'll do full sort of like character things for them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you've got yourself a couple of hirelings. So what's next? Obviously, I'm cognizant of the time getting on, so I think we're probably going to wrap up fairly soon. But what's next for you guys?
I think we're embarking on a
Towards the
the
Abbey.
Abbey.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
so,
circle was just beyond the Abbey, wasn't it?
indeed.
yeah.
Okay, let's take you back to the main map then.
I suppose the only other thing we could have potentially asked for is a map of this area a bit more to give us a bit more. But
Okay, so you guys continue to the west for 2 days. Obviously, that'll take 2 rations for each of you, and of course your new hirelings.
No problem.
And you continue west along the Horse Eye Road. As you, at the sort of end of the second day, you see what appears to be a dilapidated old ruin in the distance, sort of just to the side of the road. And you're about to continue towards it, sure that this must be the old abbey that was spoken of. It has like the river running behind it, etc. When you spot coming in the opposite direction down the road, you see a 2-horse cart. You hear it before you see it, the rumbling of the wheels. You see this 2-horse cart coming down the road towards you, and as it gets closer, you can see that the rider sitting on the front appears to be this strange, like beast-like humanoid with like short horns coming out of its head, covered in brown fur. It's like holding the reins, going quite slowly, and then walking alongside the carriage are another 3 similar-looking bestial short-horned humanoids carrying spears and wearing like leather armor. As the driver obviously like clocks you guys and sees you, he like slows the cart down, and you hear a voice from inside say, "What is it?" And the driver says, "Humans, my lord. Travellers, by the look of them." At which point the curtain on the side of the cart is like twitched open, and you see a head poke out, and it has a similar sort of bestial, like goat-like look to it. This one, however, has like long curled horns coming out of its head, and he looks across at you and he says, "Greetings, traveller. What finds you on this? Finds you on the Horse Eye Road this early in the morning?"
We travel west, looking for objects of interest, treasures, you might say.
He says, "Well, if you travel much further on the road, if you go past Fort Vulgar, you'll be finding yourself heading out of the domain of Lady Harrimore, and you'll be heading into the Nagwood. So I'd advise you to be on your guard. The place is riddled with those filthy, disease-ridden crookhorns.
Aye, so we have heard.
In fact, I'm just travelling back. I've been advising. I'm travelling back to Lord Malbleet's court. I've just been advising Lady Harrimore on how she might best deal with the problem of those filthy, mangy wretches.
Indeed, and sorry, the Lord you mentioned, his name is?
Lord Malbleet, of course.
Okay, and where does he live?
Well, he owns pretty much all of the woodland directly to the south of here. If you continue south, just across the river, then you'll be in the domain of Lord Malbleet. And obviously, there's somewhat of a tension between him and Ramius at the minute, and then there's the assorted human domains around that and such like.
Sorry, he's at odds with who, did you say?
Ramius, Lord Ramius.
Oh, who's Lord Ramius when he's at home?
And he's another one of the Longhorn lords hereabout. There's some bad blood between them going back a long time. In fact, they had to get the Lord of Brackenwald in to dispute the affair. Luckily, the two lords still respect the old alliances between man and the Longhorns.
Okay, I see.
And there's a sort of a uneasy peace at the moment, but you never know when these things are going to flare up again. That's why I'm keen to get back.
Indeed, for sure. Politics is complex.
Indeed, but my lord commanded me to pay a visit to Lady Harrimore up at Harrimore Keep and to offer her some advice. And well, if my lord commands, then that is what I shall do.
Indeed. And tell me, what is your name, Master Longhorn?
He says, I am Sir Embermore. Pleased to make your acquaintance.
And yours.
What might you be known as, sir?
Malcolm, they call me. Malcolm Harp.
Malcolm, that is a strange name.
Yes, I am from a strange land.
Well, who am I to judge? I'm sure if you continue in the direction you're going, you'll see far stranger things. What are you? Treasure hunters or?
Pilgrims of a sort.
Followers of the one true God. Very good, very good.
Followers of a god.
It's not for me to question. None of my business, really.
Aye.
But I'll leave you on your way. Be careful though. If you're heading north, there's some ruins up north, and we travelled past them on our way back from Lady Harrimore's domain, and there's strange winged creatures lurking in those ruins. Terrible shrieking we heard from those directions. I was glad to be going no nearer.
Okay. Well, that is our destination.
Well, I'd advise you to be on your guard then, sir.
Always. These are troubling times.
Well, I wish you all the best. And he just knocks on the side of the cart and he's like, drive on, man. At which point the cart starts rumbling forward.
Cool.
You continue on your way, and eventually you draw nearer these dilapidated old ruins. Looking at it from the outskirts, you can see there's this small river behind it, and the road sort of winds through it. There's a point where the road travels over the river, and there's a little bridge. You can see as you look at the ruins, many of the stones seem twisted, warped, and blackened as though soot clings to them, like some sort of great conflagration or explosion happened here that's marred the very fabric of the place.
As we're getting closer, is there any sign of these winged creatures that this guy talked of?
You're sort of scanning around. You don't see any signs of wingweeds, but you're in the trees, so it's quite difficult to see up high. However, as you get a bit nearer, you hear this very faint voice be like, "Help! Help! For the love of the one true God, somebody help! Help, I say!
Not all the voices have been friendly in these situations. We would do well to remain cautious.
Please help, I say. And then the voice is cut off by a loud screeching sound.
Then again,
And that's coming from the Abbey, I take it. Direction.
Indeed. And this screech is swiftly followed by another and another, and you see winged shadows that are cast on the ground as what appear to be feathered creatures converge on these ruins and the plaintive cries that come from within. And that is where we're going to end the session for today, guys. Hope you all enjoyed the session. Thank you very much for playing.
Yep.
That's good. Thanks a minute.
yep.
Okay, obviously we'll get to the XP and whatnot, but for now it just remains for me to thank my wonderful players and to anyone who's watching this either now or in the future. Hopefully we'll catch you for the next episode 34. So take care and we'll catch you soon.